for my bros, my people in the front row.
And from the front row to the nosebleed section.
All right, hello and welcome to the CREEDCAST. Thank you for listening. As always, we appreciate it and appreciate all the interactions as well. It's been fun getting on Twitter after the games and putting a tweet out there and getting, I think we've got 20 odd responses to this one this week, which is, again, the full gamut of emotions. But your Port Adelaide Footy Club has moved to 4-1 on the season after a 9-12 to 66 versus the Freo Dockers 9-9-63 win. A thriller. Not sure it counts as a classic, though it's an intriguing game for watching the replays and doing what we're doing now and reviewing it. But our Port Adelaide Footy Club is also sitting, we're third on the ladder, but we're second best percentage at 139.9, only behind the table topping Giants at 144. And we're best of the teams with the one loss as well. A lot of things to be positive about after 5 weeks of the season, which we kind of talked about at the start of the year. This was probably our first block of the year when we were previewing it, that we were hoping to get here at around this mark. So, Jamie, you weren't there this weekend. You had other arrangements on. Good old cricket season celebrations. But I know you've caught up on it all and certainly have a fair few. You've caught up on all the drama and the emotion of it. How are you?
Yeah, good, Dave. Thanks for that. Yeah, wasn't able to go on Saturday, unfortunately, and it was one of those things where I had it in my mind that I was going and kept forgetting about cricket prezos, and then which are pretty late in the season for late in the year for various reasons, and then it got closer, and I was like, yeah, cool. How's this game going to play out? And then I was like, oh no, that's right, I'm not going. And excuse me. In the end, yeah, kept up to date with the scores on my phone for the first few quarters, and our main awards were given out by 3/4 times. So managed to get out in the beer garden and watch the last quarter live, which was entertaining to say the least. Had a bit of everything in that last quarter, and we showed a bit of resolve to get over the line in what was a scrappy and dour affair, which we more or less predicted would happen. And while I was checking the scores on my phone, I didn't have to see a minute of football to know what was going on. Since watched the replay, of course, and a KO Mini, and all the other footy shows to dissect it. And yeah, we were talking off air and in messages leading up to today about how we're not really too fast, or we're actually fans of a game that can be a bit defensive and a bit dour, as long as there's some good moments of football throughout. And I don't know, I watched it, and maybe it's the comfort of knowing that we won. I found it somewhat enjoyable to watch. I know there was a litany of people after the game who were like, yeah, I'm deleting that from Foxtel, or I'm just not going to watch that one again. And I'm sure being at the game, it would have been very, very frustrating play by play, and then relieving, obviously, at the end to get the points. And yeah, you just want to forget about it. But yeah, I was coming at it from a different angle, and I obviously needed to watch it so that we had something to talk about, a bit more of an informed mind space. But yeah, no, Freo did Freo things, and while we didn't play the perfect game, there was a lot of frustrating moments and a lot of mistakes, even late, when we have been good at holding on to some close leads in the last 12 to 18 months. Yeah, still a lot to work on. And like you just mentioned, we're 4-1, which is where we predicted that we probably would be by this stage. We've lost one, which we probably should have won, and we won one that we probably should have lost along the way. So yeah, happy days. Third highest scoring team and third best defense in the league. So yeah, I'm sure we'll get into the ins and outs of it soon enough.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of stats to look at, especially after these first 5 weeks, that really make for some interesting reading, and mostly good reading as well. It's actually probably, when we look at that and you see some signs to maybe a little bit more resolve and solidify just solidity to our side this year compared to last year. But yeah, no, it was interesting looking at the Twitter comments after the game. There was a few, Sam Powell always has plenty to say, and I love his interactions on Twitter. But he said, honestly, felt like a loss. Relieved we won, but I guess we did not deserve that at all. Which, in the immediate aftermath, it did feel like we kind of had a highway robbery moment. But looking back, I went straight into the stats not long after the game actually because I was too wired after the game, even though it was 5:30 in the morning here when it finished. But I just couldn't sleep immediately after that, obviously, and had a look, and there was a lot of inside 50s we were plus 10 on, which is kind of a feature of our year so far this year, is we're really good at getting the ball inside 50. We're just, again,
Sport in a nutshell.
Yeah, the forward structure sometimes. But this was a game that was actually a really tough one to, as we predicted and talked about prior, and as is talked about in plenty of footy media this week as well, as Freo are a really good side in defending and not giving up a big score. It's just they can't put a bigger score on themselves. But yeah, I thought apart from the second quarter, I think the second quarter is the one where they really threatened to get ahead and dominate because they kicked those 3 goals in 4 minutes there.
Tracy, yeah.
Yeah, I think he
back to
kicked
back
all
to
three.
back.
It was him that kicked all three
Yeah.
in that 4-minute period.
Yeah. 2 marks and one was the free kick down the field.
Yes, one to Lockie Jones holding on to Brayshaw for a little bit too long. I never got a good look at it on the replay because the camera flashes.
Yeah, I think everyone thought that Willem Drew was pinged for a high tackle or something, but yeah, it was actually Lockie Jones.
I think I could
who
just see out the
came back into favour a little bit.
Yeah,
on the weekend.
Yeah, no, he did. He'll feature later on, I think. I thought that second quarter. Apart from that, I thought most of the second half we had as much as you can call the run of play. I think we had it. It was just a game that was played very much between the arcs a bit with plenty of entries, but then it would rebound out of there pretty quick, or just you wouldn't get. But yeah, I thought we actually, as much
that
as
third was an arm wrestle for sure.
Yes, it was. Yeah, there wasn't much scoring at all, and it was really both teams kind of settled into knowing what kind of game it was, and we're not wanting to give up, but not. And it was a bit of how much do you cheat forward to expose yourselves at the back, because that's when Freo did get sometimes a look, which came into a few of those last ditch tackles and good defensive efforts from the likes of. I mean, they did get through a little bit, but I actually thought as much. I don't think any team deserved to win or deserved to lose in that sense. I guess is my point. Is a lot, and that's what a lot of Twitter commentary immediately afterwards was like, "Oh, we stole that one. We didn't really deserve to win." But looking at the stats,
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
a lot of things. My view on it is, we actually played a decent game in considering the game it was. Yeah, there's some frustrations with Charlie Dixon and Ken Hinkley having words with each other at quarter time was, I think, highlighted just how frustrating
that whole subplot was.
Yeah.
Some of the best footy television in recent memory. The fact that it was happening, Dixon was clearly getting beaten, and Pearce is having a phenomenal start to the year, and he's a beast. I totally underrated him. I thought he was a bit shorter than what he is, but one of the football shows showed him up against Charlie Curnow last week, and he made Charlie Curnow look small, and not by much, but yeah, I totally underestimated the size of Pearce because he had a down year last year, and Dixon was obviously having a rough try. There was it seemed like Hinkley was poking the bear a little bit, was used on the telecast, and then he had the wry smile when he turned around to go back to the bench. The commentary was going bananas over it. Everyone was loving it. Risciuto was chuckling on the boundary. Jason Dunstall, Lee Montagna and Dwayne Russell. I thought they had a really good call, to be honest. And that whole subplot simmering from the end of the first quarter. Well, and during the first quarter, to be fair, because there was obviously play-by-play all through, and the crescendo with the second to last goal. That's some of the stuff that when you're watching football, it just makes it all that much better. And I loved it. And that's what we're talking about. The game was actually fairly good, although defensive.
Mm-hmm.
The commentary, I thought, and some of those subplots throughout the game, and in particular the Dixon subplot, just that's premium, and that made watching the replay so much better. I loved it. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely loved it. Dwayne with his Dwayneisms all throughout, it was top
Incredible.
notch. I thought some people might disagree, and they, might say that it's a bit over the top, but me personally, like, I love that shit. That was
Yeah.
great.
I did highlight a few when I was watching back. There was I like when Ivan Soldo chased. I can't remember who it was in our forward
It was
fifty. I
a
think
guy named Hughes, the
yeah,
the Roadrunner one,
yeah. But before that, he's
Coyote
like, oh,
Catcher.
he's like Ivan. He's moving in like treacle, like. And then right after that, he goes into the Coyote catching Roadrunner. So it was like two Dwayneisms back to
Yeah,
back.
it was ridiculous.
And then there was another when Jai missed gold and that was the one where Brandon Zerk Thatcher tried to go through the back of him, like made
Yeah,
him
yeah.
earn it. It wasn't
Made
anything.
him earn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't
Then
as late as what people were going on about, I
yeah,
didn't think.
no, it wasn't. And Zerk Thatcher hurt himself a little bit in that moment, which looks like he's going to be okay. They're saying, but it'll still be a watch for
Fingers
this week.
crossed,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Was there another Dwayneism there?
yeah. After he scored, he's just shaken but not stirred.
Oh, Stern, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. But then just the when Charlie marked in the fourth quarter, it was timed perfectly because Wayne, what was it? He said they need a hero, like who, or yeah, they need a hero. Who's it gonna be? And
Yeah.
then the big Charlie, and you just know, like I wouldn't have been saying the hero stuff in my seat, but
Mhm.
seeing Charlie come across, I would have been yelling Charlie at the top of my lungs,
Yeah.
exactly the way that Dwayne did. And as we know, like Dwayne obviously has a soft spot being a Port Adelaide
Mhm.
identity.
Which I think is where he cops a bit of stick sometimes, because people know that. And but he does. He
Well,
does.
I actually think that
Oh, he
I
does it.
think that in the past, sometimes he's overdone it the other way,
Mhm.
where he doesn't want to be seen as overdoing it for Port Adelaide. So he's been a bit critical in certain parts and just during commentary in certain games in the past. I've been a bit like, are you overdoing it the other way for
Mhm.
that reason? But this was perfect. And because he had Lee Montagna, who is actually quite an underrated caller, in my opinion.
Mhm.
They were just bouncing off each other from a call. Jason Dunstall's obviously a great personality. It was just a
Mhm.
good energy in the box. And yeah, it's
Then
one of those
Rashudo
rare
was.
moments where watching the football on TV is actually quite enjoyable because yeah, there's a lot of shit in that
Mhm.
regard at the moment,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
They they perfectly balanced the moment, and then the crowd was good and loud. That came through well on the TV, and then um,
Yeah.
Dwayne was good, and then I did have one. I was just like, because Rashudo, you could tell because he was like pretty cock a hoop because they came straight onto that call from the Crows
The
game,
Crows game, yeah, I
and yeah,
know.
so he's
They
like
spoke about the Crows game a bit too much for my
yeah,
liking, but it was still funny the way they were doing it
yeah,
about the
because you
two
could just
finger salute or something from Ken.
yeah, you could just tell Rashudo was just like, because like I think when Charlie took that mark as he's going back, Rashudo just pops in with like, oh, he's about 50-50 to kick this, I
50.
reckon. I was like, shut the fuck up,
Shut
Rashudo. Like,
up.
because I did this thing that I sometimes
We're all
do.
thinking it.
Yeah,
Don't say it.
that's the thing is it's like, yeah, well, and my thing was like, yeah, of course he's either going to kick it or miss it. He's literally every kick is a 50-50 if you want to do that, Rue. It was almost 5:30 in the morning. I was, as I've said before in this podcast, will continue to say, I'm usually in a severe state of delirium at that point, and
Yeah.
I didn't have a nap before the game either because it went like all the games were on Fox Sports over here that night, like GWS into the Crows game, into the Port game. So it was like from
Well, and what a good trio of games to
yeah,
have on American TV.
it was yeah. If someone had just tuned in to watch just whatever random was on, they would have had a good night with it. They probably wouldn't have understood what was
Mm.
going on, but they would have known there was drama. But yeah, um, I did this thing that I sometimes do when I'm watching. Like I love horror movies, and I'm not like scared by them, but jump scares still make you jump, right? Like that's just the nature of them.
Yeah, it's
And
part of the
sometimes,
writing of
yeah,
horror. Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes when I'm watching a jump scare movie, if I know one's coming, but I'm like, particularly when I'm in the cinema and I'm holding the popcorn, I kind of don't. I don't want to lose the popcorn, so I I'm still watching, but I look past the screen a little bit just so I don't get the full effect of it. And that's what I was doing with the Charlie kick. I was like looking at the wall behind the
Don't
TV.
look at it.
Even though out of my
You'll do the
periphery,
right
even
thing.
though out of my periphery I could see it, but my focus was on the wall. And then I just I think I saw first, what I saw first was the crowd, but like I could just see the general crowd starting to rise. I was like, yes, he's got
Because
it.
how many were there? About 35K?
I think it was about 35K, yeah.
Yeah, and surely
vaguely
it would
remember
have
hearing
it
pop up.
seemed like there was about 32 or 33,000 Port fans.
Mhm.
Like
It
the
was
way they
very-
were banging on, like banging on the drum, I guess you can say. Every
Yeah.
time we did something good or we got the lead back, like, it was going crazy. And when Charlie did take that mark, well, and HORNE-FRANCIS, like
Mhm.
there was flags going up and people just like arms, and I swear beers getting thrown everywhere. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
did seem like a very, very heavy Port Adelaide crowd.
Yeah, no, I definitely did. It's like, and yeah, it was one of those games that looked really good on TV because you just got like it was very full crowd there. Even though I know it's 35,000, it's a lot less than capacity, but it
You
looked
just
full.
know that the people who aren't there are in the Western stand anyway. So on the telecast, that's probably the one good thing is
Yeah,
that most of the outer is
full, yeah.
generally filled for Port games. It's the members who let that number down in
Yeah.
the Adelaide Oval members, sorry.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, made for great viewing.
It was incredible, yeah. Yeah, and there was like a lot of drama in that fourth quarter, but I thought it was interesting that our two things kind of that we came into the week talking about last week when we were previewing the game. Mine being talking about backing up a performance from the week before, which on first watch I was kind of like, and particularly in the second quarter, I even tweeted you in the second quarter. I was like, we look fucking shit house, and that was the second quarter for a period there. That was the one period of the game I think we truly let ourselves down.
Yeah.
We kind of just backed off a little bit too much in trying to find the balance of the game. But as the game went on and as you look back on it with hindsight to the full performance, I think we actually backed it up okay considering the game. There was a few comments on Twitter. I think one guy, I'm trying to think, what did he say? I don't want to butcher his words. Opening up the app now. What did he said, Tom Baker, he said, I suspect the coach spent the whole week telling the players just how good Freo are defensively and how hard it would be to score against them, and then we played like it. I'm like, well, isn't that a good thing that we talk about what the opposition's strengths are and how to figure it out? I appreciate the comment from Tom, by the way. It's not, but I kind of looked at what you said and it seemed like a negative thing, but I think what we did in the game was actually we backed up our performance. You can't play like, because someone else, Shan on Twitter as well said we played an amazing brand of footy against us, and then a week later we changed the way we went about it. You have to kind of acquiesce to good opposition a little bit, and then try to figure out things you do well. Now I think we could beat Freo by more if we.
It's a game of chess.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, not that I've ever played chess, but it is a game that you can't always. It's the same in any other sport. Teams sometimes have matchups that just don't work for them very well, and you can do everything you do as well. And the fact is, we got over the line. But I thought, yeah, going back onto my two things, I was losing track of my thoughts there because I was already looking at other comments. I was like, there's so much to talk about. But yeah, my thing being the backup performance. Yeah, we didn't back up a performance of how awesome it looked to beat Essendon by 69 points. Yeah, that's great. Love to win by 12 goals every week if we could.
Sure.
But I think we actually backed up the effort pretty well. Like, to find a way to win, I think is really good. And then your thing last week as well was how we managed that Freo defense, and yeah, almost lost the game, but we found a way. And I thought just going into that, and I know I'm using your thing from last week, but I thought there was moments that we actually, 5 out of our 9 goals came from our tools. Dixon kicked 2. Which, by the way, just random question without notice. 3 players that played the full game. Jackson Mead had 100% disposal efficiency as well, but he only played a little bit of the game. But 3 players that started the game had 100% disposal efficiency. Which 3 do you think they would be?
I have looked at that. Not that I remember all 3. I know that Asava is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. buddy of
I
a
mean, I
Sava.
have the stats on one of my tabs over here. It's not, it's not, I've got Twitter on as well too, but yeah, I don't know because Jace was about 90.
Jace was 90, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the other two.
Zerk, Thatcher, and Dixon.
Right, of
Yeah.
course.
So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
Dixon,
I
look,
knew
he
there was
did.
another defender.
Yeah. So, you know, a couple of plus points. Both our new boy defenders were 100% with their disposal, which in a game that was quite tight and you had to, hold up. That was Asava had a
I
couple
thought,
of
sorry
Asava did have a
to
couple of slips, but no, go ahead.
Yeah, well, sorry to interrupt on that point, and
Mhm.
we both would agree that the second quarter was probably our worst quarter for the game. But I actually thought, it was one of Asava's better games, probably his best game for us. Again, the stats aren't lighting up the sheet, but some of his involvement in play, particularly in that second quarter, was immense. He just found himself in the right spot a lot of the time, and I was really impressed with him across the whole game, to be honest, getting his body in the right positions and putting a lot of good pressure on and taking marks. But that second quarter in particular, we had to cop a lot of heat. And I thought he lifted to the occasion in that second quarter, particularly, which was good. I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah, and I thought it was just interesting because I mean, Charlie only I think had 6-7 disposals for the entire game. He got his own admission at the end of the game. He said, "Yeah, I got beaten pretty well, but he still kicked the 2 goals for the game and actually found himself in good position for both of them. Obviously, taking the mark in the square basically for that first one, and then an gettable distance for Charlie for that second one. Even though, as Rashudo said, there might have been a few people that weren't too sure on his chances there, but he sunk it. And yeah,
Yeah, he had
Mitchell,
a bad game. Like,
but
yeah, no one's shying away from that.
yeah,
I think he got beaten by a good defender who was better than him on the ground at ground level. I thought his second efforts were a bit poor. Whether that's his body, which I believe we're going to be talking about a bit later, whether it's not, whether he was in his own head. I think the service to him was a little bit poor at times, but also I thought that he ran under the ball, which is a typical Dixon thing to do when he's not quite on. It was just an amalgamation of a few things that didn't go in his favor, and yeah, he'd want to forget about it, but at the same time, that last mark that he took was on Pierce, so in essence, he got the last laugh.
Yeah. I did find it interesting. I was watching, I think this was on First Crack, and I just took a screen grab of it when they brought it up because they were talking about the Charlie Dixon reliance. You might have seen, if you've watched it, you probably saw it.
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah, they brought up that his targets inside 50 were number 1 in the AFL, but team retention is 41st in the AFL when we're targeting him. Score in number 40, and a goal for the team is 46th in the AFL. So it's a real stark contrast. If you're listening to this, I'll overlay that little stat on the YouTube video. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it. If you're listening, then check out the YouTube. But yeah, nice. I'll try to put it into a little dump on Instagram as well.
I have a bit of an opinion on that as well.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it too, because I didn't actually extrapolate it too much in my mind. I just thought it was interesting. I think it just shows that maybe we sometimes do target him a little bit more, but sometimes it does help. He does open up the field.
I thought it was interesting that it got brought up because it's obvious it feeds a stereotype, particularly from some of our a large group of our supporters. But before, because I watched First Crack, I watched it in full. But even watching the replay of the game, I don't know if I watched that before First Crack or not. But I actually thought that our small forwards were in terrible positions. They weren't preparing to crumb. It's like a lot of the time that, like I thought Freo, alternatively, were in much better position to crumb those balls that were coming off hands. And for what it like, having trust in your power forward is one thing, and targeting him so often seems predictable on the surface, but what's not predictable is when it goes to ground, anything can happen, right? That's probably part of the reason why he does get targeted a lot, because generally he's not getting outmarked. If he's one of the best contested marks in the league, whether you like it or not, he is. if he's not marking it, he's bringing it to ground, and it brings 5 other players straight into the game. Now, I didn't think that our small to medium forwards positioned themselves very well to crumb those ground balls on Saturday night, which feeds into that retention problem where, yeah, he got targeted so often, but Freo were in much, and Alex Pearce himself followed up really well at ground level.
Absolutely.
But their smaller defenders position themselves much better to feed off of those crumbs as well. And there was one thing that I was fairly disappointed in. There's a few things, and obviously we're talking about some of the highlights of the game because, yeah, cool. We won at the end of the day. But yeah, you know, there's a few things that they would be reviewing, well, yesterday probably. And I thought that was one of them that didn't help our cause and just fed into that stereotype that we're bombing on Dixon's head, and you know it's a poor way to go, and there is a bit more method to that madness, but it's reliant on our small forwards to still being in good positions to take the crumbs and run with it. In the first quarter, I thought that we had a lot of play, and particularly our halfbacks were going too shallow with our entries, which again feeds into that narrative as well.
There was a lot of the worry was like, some of the comments was the bombing inside, which sometimes just comes from a game like that, unfortunately. But we do probably, when we did eyes down, there was a few times we did work our way into the forward 50 for a few goals really well. There was those ones to the pocket, which some people, again, we get some complaints about that, but you know, Darcy Byrne-Jones picking out Todd Marshall in the pocket in the first, I think that was in the first quarter, and him and Marshall going around the body for that goal was really, that's why we do it sometimes, particularly in a game like that where we're finding it hard to get stuff inside 50 there. And I think there was another one. There was a couple of those.
Georgiades kicked one from the pocket.
Yeah, and he kicked 2 in the first.
Well, both of them, I guess you could kind of say, were from the pocket. I thought it was interesting that Jason Dunstall, obviously newest legend status in the Australian Football Hall of Fame, a very accomplished forward, in the commentary was actually saying, well, you can either have a set shot from the pocket or you're going to get a contest 25 meters out. And he's like, I know what I would prefer, and that's a set shot. Like your forwards, even in the modern day, even if you're in the pocket, your job is to kick goals. So if you as a half forward midfielder or a high half back are getting it to, I know it's to the chagrin of our supporters sometimes, but with such a defensively minded team, blocking up the corridor and blocking up the center of our inside 50, you got to take what you can get sometimes. And and to shadow what he said, at least you got the set shot. Now it's the forward's job to actually do the business. And on those occasions with George 2 times and Marshall in the first quarter, and probably a little bit disappointed that they didn't feature again, but you could say the same thing for most people. I don't think many people played a 4-quarter game.
And it tightened up a lot after that first quarter as well. Like we kicked 3 goals in the first quarter, and that's a third of our goal scoring for the whole game. So it did tighten up a lot. Yeah, we missed some, but I just thought the way we worked our way through to goal on some of those occasions was actually really impressive. Sometimes it's frustrating that we don't get to do that more often in the game, but that was the way the game was played, and we had to, like you said, it's a chess game, so we were trying to make sure that we didn't. And I actually really respect the fact that we did hold Freo out, and I think it's just an interesting stat. I'm just looking at it now. I thought I'd bring it up now since we're kind of talking about how the game went as well. Our expected score was 76 versus Freo's 61. So we actually, I know it's closer than that, but the expected score kind of agrees with the idea that we were the better team on the day overall as well. As much as people think that, and Freo would be hurting from the loss because they've come over and had 2 very heartbreaking losses, 2 very different ways. Like there's no controversy in ours, although some Freo fans on Twitter were complaining about the umpires, but no, that's you haven't played a game of footy if you're not complaining about the umpires, I don't think, at this point in time. But Yeah, it kind of shows that Port were the team that were probably expected to win the game based on Yes, that's just one analytical metric. It doesn't mean everything. It's not the be all and end
Yeah.
all, but it's just one that backs up the idea that when you do watch the game back, um, beyond that kind of patch in the second quarter, we were overall the team looking like, Freo were just basically parking. I think someone even said on Twitter at one point that they Freo parking the bus. Like, is this what this parking the bus looks like?
Yeah, well, they've
And it
gone
was,
back to
yeah,
an old game style, and
mm-hmm,
sure, yeah, if that's the way you want to play, like, cool, but it leaves you exposed because once we put the pedal to the metal late when we absolutely needed to,
mm,
it was like bang bang, and
yeah,
they're left going, well, far out. How are we going to kick a goal now? Because
yeah,
it's not part of our MO. Excuse me.
mm,
Yeah, and I mean, like the clearances is probably a bit of concern after we absolutely dominated the midfield one week.
mm,
To get so handily beaten in the middle was probably, yeah, another thing that is a bit of a concern out of the night.
yeah. Particularly when we
I don't know
actually,
what you feel, how you feel about that, but I mean, coming up against a midfield that I rate, and these two midfields will be going head to head for the next 10 years. Obviously, Wines from Port will probably drift out in the next 5 years.
mm,
Fife, much the same for Freo, but the core uh, nucleus
yeah,
of younger midfielders, like they'll be going head to head in some good games over the next 10 years, which is uh, something to look forward to for sure. And like I respect them, Brayshaw, Sarong, and Young moving into the midfield this season has been a great move for them.
mm,
But yeah, they definitely put us to the sword. And yeah, from one week where we had absolute utter dominance and we were in, yeah, such glowing praise for that midfield and how epic it was coming up
yeah, and
against a fairly
all the
meek
way they were
Essendon.
structuring and stuff. We were all like, yeah, geez, they're working it out well and have good structure. But yeah, it was interesting because I did have a look at some stats like for the like overall for the first 5 weeks, and we're first in the league in center clearances. Hit outs to advantage, we're first as well. So we kind of like we should have been better on the weekend. But I, looking back at it, I was just thinking we just kind of we maybe cheated too much into trying to play our own rather than. But I thought that actually really was really impressed with the last center. I think it was I think it was on the couch. Might have talked about our first crack. One of them did talk about how our last two center clearances before when we were half a goal down and how we executed that center
Yeah, it was
clearance
Kingy.
versus it was Kingy, which I get issues with Kingy, but I agree with him sometimes as well. He was right. Yeah. Yeah, God damn it, it's Kingy, isn't it? Anyway, yeah, he was right though. Like the way we matched up at the, you know, executed the center clearance to get the ball down to Jason HORNE-FRANCIS for what turned out to be the winner versus how we matched up at the next one to try to block the run of Freo and make it a bit more of a contest. That center clearance, you can see that they've got a really good handle on what or we have a reasonably good handle on the talents and the mix we have in the midfield there. But I think we just maybe cheated a little bit at times and let Freo just matched up better on the day. I don't know if it's a major cause for concern going forward with how young we are as well. We just got beaten on the day, I think, a little bit, but in the end of the day, we
Yeah.
kind of figured out a way to, and maybe it was the fact that we didn't have as much worry for Freo's execution going forward. I don't know. I think once if you get a decent center clearance, then you should be worried anyway. So that's probably not it, but. I'm thinking on the go as the question comes up, but I think just a bad day in that respect, but not the worst either. Because when we needed to execute
Yeah.
and do things well, we as you said, we made a run in the last
When
5 weeks.
Soldo's still, I think he had like 18 hit outs to advantage. Like
Yeah,
he just keeps
like I said,
that stat in particular and how important it is.
yeah,
He just keeps powering on in that
we're
regard.
we're first in the league for it. Like, and that's incredible considering where we were last year. So,
That's
yes,
amazing.
it's a small sample size still, but it's pretty handy. So, and just maybe a good factor in why we were good, even though we lost the clearances pretty well. But we're also first in the league in losing the ball inside defensive 50. We're at 11% loss rate, which is just incredible with balls going inside fit.
Yeah, I know we've won a lot of defensive one-on-ones.
That's
defensive matchups.
That's first in the league in that sense as well. So both middle, forward, going back, there's a lot of things that we're actually hitting the metrics pretty well on. I guess talking about just the end of the game before we get into other stuff, I just really impressed with that. I mean, obviously the Miles Bergman had a really good game. I thought, like, he was on your watch list a few weeks ago.
I agree.
He had a good game. Obviously had a really good goal. Jason Bergman or Miles HORNE-FRANCIS. I like that. I like that it was the HORNE-FRANCIS assist for the Bergman goal after that great kick.
I know. The kick it forward boys would, they would have popped a bottle of champagne over that probably.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it popped up on Twitter. I'll have to look. Someone posted about it. It might have been Monty. One of the Perth boys posted about the West Australian actually getting the name wrong. I think unironically in their, like, you know how they do the live feed in on a newspaper's website or whatever, and like I think they wrote
I saw that.
Bergman kicked the winner, I think, and I think from how I read it, it's not like they did it as a joke. I think that was
I didn't read it as a joke either.
So, it's just hilarious that keeps happening because I don't know, they don't like. I get that they look similar, but until the advertiser made that mistake that got the kick it forward boys based an entire bit on.
If any listeners haven't seen that video, I guess that adds to the whole thing as well. Like, talking about the commentary of the game and then just that little clip beforehand from kick it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kick it forward, and they did a little clip involving Jason HORNE-FRANCIS and Miles Bergman. Most of you have probably seen it by now, but it's one of those things that you pick up on a small detail, like something else each time you watch it, and each time you watch it, it gets a little bit more funny.
Yeah.
Like Miles Bergman in the interview,
and his name was like Dr. Bergman Francis, and he's like,
and Josh Garlep.
Yeah, into
everything's hyphenated.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. I'll put a link in the show notes for it. But yeah, it was. I think I shared it on Twitter and in the Instagram stories. Most people who are terminally online like me will have found it in some way or form. But yeah, it was just great. As soon as they linked up for that goal, I was like, that's just great. I think I put a tweet out about it, which got plenty of love. So I think most people understood it. But
absolutely.
I think it got away from it. But it was Miles Bergman that put the ball back in, took a great contested mark when the Freo were trying to exit the defensive 50.
And
that's fine with 4.5 minutes to go at that point, because I think Charlie kicks it when there's about 4 minutes left on the clock. It's so funny because when
he had his marking hands back on Bergman, that's for sure.
Yeah,
just trying to quickly.
That's one of the quintessential parts of his game is when he can pop up in those advanced areas and kind of help.
8 marks, two intercepts, and 2 contested.
Yeah.
So he had his gripper on for sure.
And then put it right into the hot spot again, and for a contest that somehow Charlie was the 4th man up or something, because usually he's the target of it. He must have loved the fact that
he came from the side. Because if he wasn't there, Georgiadis 100% would have taken a specky. Like he was in position to take a mark as well. Like Charlie was a man on a mission. He had a point to prove.
Oh yeah.
I think Pierce got knocked over in the process too. So
I think I saw a few tweets.
Great call on Bergman.
And he popped it into the hot area, and then it was so funny because with 5 minutes to go, when you're 10 or 10 points down, whatever we were at that point, you're sitting there going, "Oh God, we need 2 goals in 5 minutes in a game that we've only scored 7 the entire way. Like, it's not going to happen." But then suddenly Charlie kicks that one, and then it changes in your mind again, and you go, "All right, we just need 1 in the last 4 minutes. That's doable." Then when we get an incredible sequence that just has everything you love about where this side's going right now. It's Butters out of the middle with his speed and turn of pace, because he actually comes out the back, like the defensive side of the center circle, and just turns and goes. A little bit of he kicks it, gets it into a good area, and just a clean, beautiful Connor
It was a
Rozee.
pretty, I mean, it was a pretty average kick.
It
He
was,
got
yeah.
under it, probably more than he would have
Yeah,
liked. He
a
probably
little
would
bit
have liked
under
a
it
bit more
rather than the
penetration.
yeah. But
Yeah, but a good
Rozie's just
spoil
not
from Marshall to get it to ground level.
yeah for a Rozee gather and a very clean gather. It's one of
Mm.
those ones that needed to be clean because otherwise you get stuck there and it ends up being maybe you get tackled and there's a ball up or
Yeah,
something.
Robbo was saying that on AFL 360 last night. He said the exact same thing. Said that if Rosie double grabs that ball or hesitates, it's a tackle and that's it. That's done. They flood our forward line and yeah, we
Yeah,
may not
you
get a
don't get
goal.
HORNE-FRANCIS
They
at a
may shut it
one-on-one in the
down.
square. Yeah, well, just outside the square, but yeah, that because yeah, just the ability to get it forward, and you got that was a good kind of wasn't quite penetrating ball, but it was just enough, and it was
Just yeah, full pressure.
enough
Yeah,
movement on it
when there's
that
a one-on-one ahead of the ball.
yeah, and HORNE-FRANCIS is strong. He's a strong young bull of a player himself, so he had the matchup he wanted and was able to just push off and
Yeah,
in a in a perfectly legal sense and get the mark. And then yeah, just that finish. Yeah, he said he was pooping his pants a little bit, but but it's funny. Like this is the fan thing you do. Like suddenly I've looked at it and we've gotten 2 goals in a minute basically, and I'm going, fuck, we've left too much time on the clock. And
yeah,
the
yeah,
next
yeah.
the next 3 minutes was
But shit, now we have to park the bus.
yeah, and then Sarong I think had a shot that blazed across the face, and then
Oh
we
Jesus,
made a
yeah, he
bit
got a
of
little bit too much room for my liking.
yeah, and we made a few mistakes trying to lock out that last minute of play as well. It was Darcy Burn-Jones, who I think had a reasonable game again, but he had one of those moments that just that Darcy Burn-Jones
Yeah, like
hate
3 out in the fulls or something, 2 or
yeah
3 out in the full on that wing.
hmm
Obviously trying to kick it to contest, but it's just like make sure of it.
yeah
And
he's
then there was the Dixon got the
gets
free
tunneled
kick.
yeah.
Yeah, and they played on for some reason.
Yeah,
Like
so watching that back a couple of times, and
I
I did want
yeah,
to ask you about it because they kind of look
yeah.
like they're not
I think I know what
sure
you're
if
gonna say.
they have to go with the advantage, because
I don't know. Yeah,
the umpire didn't really make it clear with the whistle or whatever because he kind of like calls advantage, but then the players are like, wait, do we have to go with it? Oh no, I think we do. So they kind of keep
yeah,
going.
yeah.
Um,
There was part of me that thought that they didn't even hear the free kick
there was that
in the
too.
beginning
Yeah,
because they were right on that eastern wing where the crowd would have been so loud.
going mental. Yeah.
Um, but it just, yeah, from an optics point of view, it just seems like, what are you
We made
doing?
a.
Like, we just need a couple of marks. We're forward of 50, forward of center, sorry.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then again, like Rioli, I think what he was trying to do was grubber it along the ground to just gain
Mhm.
territory, but instead he's just kicked it straight forward. Yeah, there's a lot of things that they would be wanting to fix up because it was a high pressure game, a highly defensive game, and we're kind of lowered our colors a little bit in some critical moments. And
Mhm.
yeah, I guess again, we've said, oh, it's good to be winning and not playing our best football. You just want to hope we're still not saying that post the bye
Mhm.
and going, oh yeah, we're winning games and we've still got room to improve, which, I'm sure there'll still be minor details by the later stages of the year. But yeah, each victory so far has brought about a new learning, to
Mhm.
use a common AFL phrase
Yeah, I
or
feel like it's
term.
been a while since we used that one. Yeah. I'm glad to hear it again.
It
um,
won't be the last time.
yeah, no, it was one of those ones that you just kind of got to find a way, and because Freo are, they're trying to find their way into the season too, and they've probably latched onto this game style because it works for them, and they're going to try and expand out of that, I assume, because it's probably not sustainable for them to be. They'll certainly probably are playing a brand of footy that should get them in the top 8, even though they've had a couple of losses that brings them back down to earth a little bit. But I think they're still 3-2, so they're fine.
They'll be hard to beat at home this year.
Yeah. Do we have to go
And I
home
think
to
we
play
play
them?
them again.
Yeah, probably in the last round again or something like that. I feel like it is one of the last
I'm
couple of
not,
rounds.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great
Um,
question.
but yeah, it's one of those ones that we probably plenty to take out of it, learnings as you said, and which is good. It's good to have games like that. I mean, you don't want to, like I said, rather win by 12 goals, but you're just not going to when you're going to play good teams. if you find a way to win, and as we've said, got a few statistical metrics.
We do play them in the last round again.
Yeah, and in the West as well. Yeah, because we played them in the last round last
Yeah,
year as well.
last year.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Not that I'm going to be a fixture basher, but sometimes, Jesus, that's a fun trip to have to take right before finals, which, knock on wood, we're very comfortable there at the
Hopefully we're
moment.
there, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was a fun little game. Watching, as you said, watching the replay, it was like probably a little bit more enjoyable. I think, yeah, it's one of those ones that in the heat of the moment when you're watching that, especially again, like for me at 2:30 in the morning, it's just like, I don't want to have to stay up and watch this if it's going to be a loss like this. And then but yeah, watching the replay with the benefit of knowing what had gone on, I thought it was a pretty damn imperfect performance. There's certainly things to look at, especially kind of the pressure at times, because I think we lost a contested ball by a decent amount. But the contested ball is a good metric and a fairly good metric because that's somewhere we're still not great with. But I think part of that comes from the fact
it's something that we
do
hold in high regard.
Yeah, we do control the ball a fair bit as well, so that sometimes helps us because I think we had more disposals for the game, but and we were a lot more direct in this game as well, looking at meters gained and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's one of those ones that you just have to find a way to win.
We lost contested possessions by 11. It was 127 to 138. So, and not an absolute smashing. And it probably just plays into what you were saying earlier. Like, we had a lot of the play throughout the major parts of the game, and both sides would say that they probably didn't take advantage of some of the momentum that they had. Yeah, again, just one of those games, probably. High pressure.
Now, there's a few things I wanted to bring up, but I know that they're probably going to come up in our segments coming up here, so I'm going to hold off in a couple of moments, particularly for that, which I'm sure you probably have some ideas there as well. So, first of course, did you have anything else generally with the game? By the way, any other notes there before we go into the segments? No.
I wanted to highlight the commentary, and we already have, so that tick that box.
Yeah, no, that was high in my notes as well. That's why I actually had a couple of those the Dwayne ones written there.
Yeah, I don't know if people want us to comment on the Butters non-suspension. I think every Port supporter probably has the same biased opinion, although I don't think it's biased. I'm glad he got off, obviously.
Yeah, it's been interesting seeing plenty of most of the pundits, Kingy aside. He seems to have just, and that's why I kind of said
it's his hill to die on.
Yeah, that's what he's
put his flag in the ground, and
and I don't know what he wants the game to be, because he's just like, we need to scrub this out because someone's gonna, like with the Matt Crouch one in particular, which that one there is differences between them. I get why some people don't see it, but then there is. But yeah, he's like that's inches away from a spinal injury. And I'm like, there is so many acts on the footy field that are inches away from a spinal injury. Stop letting guys go out for speckies then, because if they tumble down and get left, it's like what? So it is just his hill to die on. And I get it, because we're going to talk about it when we get to Collingwood. We've had another medical retirement today with Nathan Murphy retiring and that's actually, I think it's a good thing for the league that they are doing a lot more care for these players, and if a player does need to get that advice, they're giving it to him rather than trying to let him keep going. But yeah, with Kingy's comments, I just don't know what he wants the league to be. It sucks because we don't want guys getting hurt, but then at the same time, if this is a 360-degree contact sport, unlike any other on the planet, because whether it be rugby, American football, whatever other sport, even soccer, it's lines of players coming from opposite ends of the field coming at each other, whereas this sport is truly a chaos sport in that sense. And there's just no and I don't mind these suspensions for, I know the Sandpaper one was borderline as far as what we think is contesting the ball and genuinely contesting a ball and a player. But the Butters one was just such a direct, it really was just a ball contest that just clipped someone on the way through. He didn't even get. I think he's fine. I think it was Banfield. Was it Banfield?
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, he's
Yeah. I
fine.
mean, in the moment, the way that he kind of recoiled from the contact, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, like,
Yeah.
what have you done? But of course, once I saw the vision, I was like, oh, okay, well, cool. He's got
Yeah.
lower and he did run over the ball. And I agree that I would have been okay if Banfield got the free kick. So the umpires have probably let him down there. But I'm glad that Michael Christian came out and said that
There's no case to answer.
Butters has made a genuine play on the ball because at the end of the day, because this is what Lee Montagna was arguing with Kingy about on First Crack, is that they've been saying that they want people to make a play on the ball, and Kingy was like, "Oh, who said that? Who said that? It's been the fans and blah blah blah." And I genuinely, yeah, he's made this his thing. He's put his flag in the ground for head-high contact, but I think every footy fan, we're in this weird environment at the moment where players are getting suspended and supporters of those teams are going, oh, well, my player got suspended and I don't agree with it, so your player should get suspended, and kind of not appealing to reason a little bit. We're in this weird environment where people are kind of going like, oh, no, like he's got him in the head, so he has to be suspended. And like, we don't want that as a sport. Like, I agree that things happen in split seconds, but Crouch obviously bumped and then grabbed the ball. Peter Wright obviously turned in his shoulder. Sam Powell-Pepper obviously turned in his shoulder. Like, whether we agree with the length of time that he was suspended or not, if he kept himself open, or if he went to join in the tackle, not that he probably knew that Rioli was going to sling Mark Keane around, but if people are making genuine plays on the ball like that, yeah, that's what people want. They want footy acts. And unfortunately, if people get hurt as a result, it's not as a result of unnecessary play. So why should people get suspended for it? Butters' velocity at the ball makes it seem worse than what it was. The funny thing,
he makes it bad on himself with his speed because he overruns it a little bit too. Like,
yeah, and people are like, people are dissecting it and splitting hairs and going, oh, well, Bailey Banfield tipped it, so he would have grabbed it cleanly had Bailey Banfield not tipped it, and blah 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 blah. Like, I don't really want to get into all of that. Like, I think Butters makes a genuine play on the ball. He did overrun it slightly, and he did collect him high, but his ass hit him high.
Yeah,
and this is the like punters calling up sports radio and whatnot, and people in the media. There's one side of the argument which would say, well, where's the duty of care on the player to themselves? And we're rewarding people for going for the ball in an incorrect manner. So Bailey Banfield has reached for the ball. He hasn't lowered himself and he's not protecting himself. And it's a dangerous path to take where we as supporters already think we know that people are deliberately, like Ginnivan, for example, deliberately seeking head-high contact, exaggerating contact, and like, I don't know. I do know. I don't want to see players leaving themselves exposed purely because they might get a free kick out of it. Like, that's not how you should play football. And the AFL has kind of brought this on themselves a little bit. So that's why it was good that Christian went, no, he's turned side on. He's made a play at the ball.
And eyes were on the
If
ball.
it wasn't for a few minuscule factors, he would have actually won the ball. So if you're winning the ball legally, why are we suspending someone for that?
Yeah,
And
particularly when
the
the other
funny thing is that Jason Horne-Francis made the exact same play on the ball. I think it was in the third quarter on the wing, on the outer wing. He turned side on.
Mm,
Fortunately, the opponent was a bit more upright, so he effectively hip and shouldered him, but in a more downright position, and he won the
mm,
ball. But like
yeah,
Butters didn't elect to bump. I think that's what people are forgetting is he didn't elect to bump
mm,
and got Bailey Banfield high. He made a play on the ball and got Bailey Banfield high,
mm,
and that's why he's safe for
yeah,
this week.
yeah. It's incidental contact in a contact sport. Unfortunately, it's kind of like, when soccer players jump at the ball and they collide heads, sometimes there's one that gets fouled because they're leaning in too much, but sometimes it's 50-50. But in neither case is anyone getting suspended because it's just incident. Like a lot of sports have a fairly good understanding of what is incidental contact within the game that's part of the game. And like, it just seems like fans and media have, because of the current trend of the last couple of years with the protecting, and again, we agree with the protecting of the head and needing to advance the ways we can mitigate it when we can. But this was just one of those instances you can't do that. And particularly when it's like Banfield, not like wanting to do the victim blaming, but they're both engaging in the same act, head over the ball, and just one got collected.
One
It's just
person did it better than the other.
yeah, and it's
That's the
just
way I see it.
unfortunate. Yeah, and it's just an unfortunate. And again, no one got hurt. I think Banfield's going to be completely fine for this week. So it's not like the one thing.
Yeah.
The one thing that's been a thing the last couple of years, said thing about 5 times in the last 30 seconds, but the big thing has been like they're punishing outcome sometimes, but there wasn't even an outcome to punish here either. So
Yeah.
it's like fans have lost their minds a little bit with where the
Mm.
goalposts are, and sometimes start punishing it before they realize actually what's happened. And again, it was a football act, and I'm as I completely agree. I'm glad that Christian came out and kind of said, no, well, at some point we've got to let footballers play football at some point.
Mm.
The game is getting better as far as you're seeing. Kind of just my watching, particularly watching Gather Round and having a full weekend watching footy for the first time in a little while because I did the podcast with Donnie last week. I have noticed a bit of just a change in the way players are adjusting the way they're playing the game. Yes, there's going to be, again, we're going to have incidents. There's going to be bumps. I feel like Jimmy Webster one might have rattled a few players with thinking, oh shit, we'd better because the suspensions are getting a little bit out of hand if we keep going the way we're going. So it does feel like there has been an adjustment in the way players are playing the ball in general this year so far. I've found watching, and so that players are figuring it out, but that you're still going to have contact in a contact sport. So
Yeah, you're gonna have dumb mistakes and things like
yeah,
that. And I agree that Peter Wright should have kept his fucking arms out.
mm-hmm.
Like he had more time,
Yeah,
but he didn't. Because
mm-hmm.
you're gonna give up a head high free kick anyway.
Yeah,
So make a play on the ball
mm-hmm.
to avoid suspension.
Yeah.
Like if
I,
players learn that over time, hopefully quicker. Like if you're not in best position to win the ball, put your hands out.
mm,
I don't understand. Like it's been a long time since I played football, and again, I know all these things are happening in seconds, in split seconds, and things like that. But if you're not in best position to win the ball and you're already in the air, put your hands out. Like the
yeah,
AFL, I don't think you're going to get suspended
mm,
if you like. You can brace for contact with your hands as opposed to your shoulder.
yeah. And I guess that's
That's your strength.
mm,
Um, it's nice on a separate note. It's nice to have a player considered looked after by the system because he's in contention for Brownlow. Though, like
I
I
did
think
love
that
that.
call,
I did
especially
love
from
that comment.
Kingy, I think
Yeah,
that call is absolutely fucking ridiculous, and it just keeps that fire going.
mm,
But yeah, it's kind of nice to
yeah.
have players
Because it used to be us complaining about
seem like
yeah,
protected species and whatnot. Something we're not used to. I
yeah,
don't agree with it at all. I don't think that's why I got let off.
yeah. No, the reasons are
Because if
actually very
anything, I
clear.
think
But
Rosie's probably the Brownlow favourite from a Port Adelaide perspective so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did laugh at that when I saw it because I woke up and saw the headlines of it before I actually watched it because that show's on overnight and I just thought, okay, I'm gonna have to watch this now. So,
It's just a
uh,
typical fucking Kingy thing to say. It's are we protecting the head or are we protecting the Brownlow? It's just a stupid thing to say. It's
it
ridiculous.
is very basic, clickbaity stuff to get the engagement from
Yeah.
the lowest common denominator in football fandom. To say stuff like that, and that's why I'm disappointed because I think Kingy actually is pretty good with a lot of stuff that he does, but then he latches onto this stuff and then goes into a base mode into just trying to do the stuff for the
You're
clicks or
doing a
whatever.
bit.
Yeah, it is, and he's been over the top with it all year, and it's really fascinating from a player that's come from an age where he probably got away with a fair bit. Trying to actually
Yeah.
think back to his
Yeah.
career because obviously he was one of the players that I would have watched my first 15 years of life, and it's just like it is very funny to get retire and then come out 20 years later and then be like, no, we need to change everything. It's just like, no, you've got to, and yes, and the basis of it there is a need to be better about the head stuff, but you've gone too far the other way. It's just like, yeah. So
Yeah, and I agree with mitigating as much as possible. Yeah, reducing as much risk as possible and changing behaviors um to help people have longer careers and post career looking after, like I've got a close friend who has had a pretty serious concussion battle himself. Um so I'm all for protecting the head and changing behaviors. But at the end of the day, if you're playing football, you're making a play on the football, someone's not even concussed. Like, I don't know what you want as an opposition fan and Kingy. Like,
yeah.
you can't just suspend players because someone got clipped in the head and ignoring everything else around that. Um,
If we start punishing that stuff, like I said this to someone on Twitter actually. I was like, this would make it would be really interesting if stuff like that did, down the track, because the way it's going, it feels like we're going to start overreacting to things at some point. Like, how many players are going to be ineligible for the Brownlow at the end of 2025, 2026 if we keep
yeah,
going down this path? Because
yeah.
there's going to be incidental contact get 1 week, 2 weekers or something like
If
that.
people are getting suspended for
Yeah.
incidental
Yes.
contact.
Which, it would have been it would have been an interesting test of this kind of rule from Christian about, genuine plays on the ball if he had ended up with a concussion, because concussions can happen very innocuously, and he could have, his head had just rattled the right way, he might have had a symptom, and then because so it would have been an interesting test of that if he had ended up with a concussion, because then he would have gotten into the arguments of punishing outcomes, and you would have maybe had a Brownlow, and my thing is, like, I think the Brownlow medal committee or whoever it is, I guess it's just the AFL, has to actually look at it and go, do we need to? Because the old rule about best and fairest with the Brownlow medal being, this is just a side note, I won't spend too long on it, but it being something that was, for fair play as well, and back in the 80s, 90s, and before, the things you were getting suspended for were genuinely you had to literally be
Yeah,
getting
like
into
punching people
punch
and
ons
stuff
and
like
punch
that.
ons and dirty
Although
acts on the.
Corey McKernan got suspended for tripping someone, didn't he?
Yeah, it was.
That's
Yeah,
why.
Corey McKernan's
That's how
was.
he missed out on the
Yeah.
Brownlow. That's stupid.
Yes, that is. Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah.
Generally was, but now we're going to have players possibly suspended for genuine football acts, and possibly just a 1 week token suspension at some point, for a Brownlow fancy. It'll be interesting, and just how the Brownlow medal goes forward with that, because it's not the same. The parameters are different now. So I don't know
Yeah.
if too many people in the AFL world have seriously considered that. I assume, I'd hope there's some smart people that have thought about that in the background, but it's something I've been wondering for a while, and just with the
Yeah.
Kingy comment just made me think of it more this week. So I wanted to touch on that just as a brainworm for people to think about going forward. So, Yeah, I don't think, is there anything else apart from that?
Nah, I'm good to
No.
go. Good to
Cool.
move on.
All right, segments. I look forward to this more than anything. Though I had a tough time with it this week, in a good way. There's lots to consider. But first of all, spotlight. Before we get into the awards, and you get to start with your spotlight, your positive one first.
Well, I'm actually going to do the potentially rare thing of doing the same player 2 weeks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone for Junior Burger again, Jace Burgoyne. It's funny how we were talking about him playing half a game last week and having that opportunity, and then thinking about how that would extrapolate out in a full game. And luckily, I didn't see the teams before the game on Saturday, but then saw his stats throughout the game, and I was like, he must be playing a full game, and he did. And as a result, he's played a fantastic game. He had the 21 disposals, and when at 90% efficiency, he looked absolutely cool, calm, and collected. The same things we were talking about last week. He had his own chase down tackle, took some good intercept marks, or put on some great pressure, great changes of play. Just another impressive outing for a player that a lot of people prior to like our match sim and community series game, a lot of people, even including myself, probably didn't have him, but they probably would have thought that he would have to do a lot to feature. I'm sure there would have been a large group of people who probably thought that this year might be a chance to be his last year. But every step of the way this year, pretty much everything I said last week applies to this week. Just good to see him play a whole game. And, it just reduces our reliance to rush Boki back, and it allows us flexibility because he can play halfback, he can play on the wing. Same with Farrell, he can play wing, he can play halfback. Same with Bergman. So it just adds another layer of flexibility to our team. And again, super impressed with his output. I hope he continues in this fashion, because it's just another fantastic lever to pull that we've got. Another notch for depth in our team this year, in our squad this year. And obviously the father-son story is beautiful.
Yeah, wearing his old man's number now as well, which is great to see. And yeah, I think you mentioned running. Yeah, his 90% efficiency as well, which in a game was really important to be clean with the ball. 9 contested possessions as well. Just like he did everything quietly. And yeah, he was one of the ones that I was trying to think there was something else I was going to say, but yeah, no, he's just as far as depth goes, because we were talking about it a few weeks ago, in the outcome of the aftermath of the Melbourne game, that there was Melbourne's lower tier players in their game day squad that really made a difference, and we probably missed out on a little bit of that on that game day. But it was some of those guys in this game that stood up when it was a game that needed a little bit more of an even spread of input from the game day squad, and Jace was a big part of that. So it was really, he was. I had two choices in mind, and he was one of them. So I was wondering, I forgot that you went with him last week, but that's he's definitely worthy of continued.
It's a good form line.
Yeah,
on his behalf.
I thought my other choice I had there, just to try to pick one that is he's only been back for 2 weeks, but and it's not like he's not doing a great deal yet, but just sort of give a plug to, I think, Mitch Georgiades coming back from an ACL, long out. There was a lot of people wondering how he'd come back into the side, but he's got 4 goals in the first 2 weeks. Obviously, Essendon was a bit of a breeze of a game in the end, but he got a couple, and he could have had 4 there. It was very close to having four in that game. But to pop up with 2 goals and 2 really good finishes again, his form looks good as far as his goal kicking form. His marking looks good. He even came forward, came out into kind of the center, like half forward center square line, to take one up the ground a little bit. He's moving around pretty well. yeah, contributing in a game that was quite bereft of golden opportunities, but he contributed early, and then he was even Charlie taking that mark, as we talked about earlier, getting him like he changes the way the forward line functions, like for the better. Like Charlie's very integral to the forward line structure as far as like how he does take a lot of the heat, and that's I think part of his frustration in his conversation with Ken was some of the heat and maybe some decisions he doesn't get at times. I think was what Ken alluded to as well. But yeah, Mitch being thrown into that forward line and his kind of unique skill set has helped. Helped that forward line, I think, immensely already, and he's still working his way back to probably what he'd expect to be full form match fitness. We haven't seen him fly too much yet, so it'll be interesting to see if he
he had a couple of half opportunities.
Yeah,
and like I said, he would have taken that mark had Dixon not been there late in the game.
Which is a good problem to have.
But they were kind of just half speckies. Kind of just
I wonder
forcing himself on the shoulders of the defender.
I wonder where his confidence is with that at the moment. But certainly I don't want him taking any risks until that knee's. I'm sure the knee's fine, but he's still working your way back to that confidence. But as far as his ability to lead out and be a hit up target up forward, he's been a breath of fresh air. So and again with the real unknown of how we'd come back, I thought with 2 weeks back and looking and playing a positive role, I thought I'd have to give him some love there. There's lots of good candidates at the moment, but thought Mitch was worthy.
I like that one.
Yeah,
because it's hard to say how any player comes back from an ACL. Some are on the right side of it, and some aren't. And he's getting a bit of room to move as well, playing up and down the ground, and his kicking looks far and above what it did this time last year, and before he got injured.
Was it 2022? I had to look at his stats because he kicked like 23 goals, 24 in that year that the yips really hit. So before that he was actually pretty consistent. But So
the second goal that he kicked, that the first one was just an arrow, but he was in the left pocket, which is perfect for a right footer. But the goal he kicked in the right hand pocket was beautiful.
Just perfect action.
So I think this one's probably been brewing for some people for some time. I'm not a McEntee hater myself, but he had a bad game. In a game that in reflection, probably would have suited him. You would have thought like a dour kind of, gritty game. It's what he's mainly selected for is his tackling intensity and pressure inside 50 and whatnot. But in the end, it just wasn't working for him, and he ended up on the back bench. I'm not sure if his spot is up for grabs now, although
it'll be interesting based on where some of the guys that are out at the where if Boak comes back and how they mess things up or mess around with things with but I think Boak's still a test for this week, so he might hold on to it, or Mead might get a role, or
he just for whatever reason just didn't have a good game.
Unfortunately, McEntee.
I don't really have much more to say. Him getting subbed out kind of speaks for itself a little bit. And
it did,
we welcome back Sam Powell-Pepper, who we haven't touched on at all. He looked obviously rusty, but you're back now that you've got Peps. DBJ, who's had a fantastic start to the season. Rioli's looks to be back in form. That fourth small spot with Frankie Evans always there and thereabouts. I'm not sure how the other smalls went in the SNFL game on the weekend.
I haven't had a chance to look at that too
much. And it's one of those things where the selectors might be going, well, you had one bad game, but prior to that, based on what they want him to do, tackling inside, leading our tackles inside 50 and getting his 1 goal a game. Are they going to drop him after one bad game? Although I know there's a group of supporters who'll probably say he hasn't really played a good game at all this season. Yeah,
He
I'd
is
counter that
tasked with
with
a he
what
is
his
tasked
role
with a
is.
yeah. It's a
But
thankless
yeah,
it's a thankless role he's been asked to play, and he's doing exactly what he's been asked to do. And a lot of fans would disagree with just that role even being a thing, but it is, you know, part of why our forward line is functioning as one of the best. As much as the inaccuracy may hurt at times, but overall, as far as our scoring goes, we're one of the top scoring, as only one of two teams in Fox Footy's premiership window at the moment. So
premiership window, yeah.
doing something right. Yeah, but yeah, no,
Yeah, and as a
he is
fan, some of
unfortunately,
that stuff is what you have to kind of like, we can get we can get a lot of tunnel vision,
Mhm.
obviously only caring about our team, but yeah, when you draw out a little bit and look at it all, um, we're doing a lot right early doors.
Yeah. He was one of the ones I had on my list. The only other one I actually put on there, which is it's really unfair. You did just mention him. He's only been back for a week. Um, I still expected a lot. I think Pal Pepper came
He
in wanting
tried
to.
to
He
he tried
tried
to do a
way
lot.
too hard, and I know he'll rein
Yes.
it in. But it was hard. It was actually a hard game to find too many that I was really, because I thought a lot of the guys that have been on my radar for this, for the improvement watch list over the last few weeks probably actually
Didn't
did.
want to do Dixon twice in a row either.
No, no, and I think, and again, Dixon, I think we talked about plenty, and I just was like, I'm not going to go him again because he obviously, it was clear his game, and
It's been
I think
well
there was as much,
documented.
as much part of a symptom of the game, but SPP did just kind of, blaze away a little bit. He a little bit over aggressive in the tackles because I think he had one tackle where he went high, like just really just, and wasn't even um, that he did. It was just over aggressive. Like it wasn't like it looked like he was trying to you know trying too hard. He does float that line, Pepper, a little bit with his play, and he really was just, you could tell he was just trying to make a statement. And yeah, my watch for him is genuinely, it's not so much a negative thing. It's more like my watch for him is like, okay, now you've got your week back, you've got a little bit of that rust off. Where are we going to go from here and establish
Mm.
your spot again? Because he was an integral part of what we did well last year, but he was almost a negative in that forward line this week because he kind of,
Yeah.
everything he was throwing himself around with a bit of reckless abandon. So, but we I love SPP, and I think most do. So
Oh yeah, we would
he'll
all
figure
be
he'll figure it out.
expecting
But
him to bounce back quite well over the next
yeah,
few weeks
I
for
think I just
sure.
didn't expect him to run in there just like a bull in a china. I thought, as much as it's not surprising in hindsight, I was just like, didn't expect him to just be the bull in a china shop completely, like straight away. I thought he'd gotten a little bit away from that over the last couple of years and reined it, like kind of found the right. But yeah,
Yeah, three
first
free
game,
kicks against. I just had a look and
yeah, and
topping
again,
the list.
one of those high tackle ones was just one you could just see was just, he just went in just without, he didn't have much technique to it, and it's just like, no, you just, yeah. But it didn't, it ended up not being a negative as overall because we won. But yeah, it's just a watch to see how he settles into the season now, because he kind of shook off a bit of frustration in that one, I reckon. So
Yeah, and I mean
yeah.
he's been languishing for so long, like getting the suspension when he did,
Hmm.
and considering that it was for 4 matches, but there was still a preseason match and a opening round before, like it's just so much
Yes, yeah,
time
so 6 weeks
with
off, isn't it?
what
Yeah.
one SANFL, like well, no, he didn't even play the SANFL games either, did he?
No, I don't think he
Um,
could. So
no, he didn't play it. Like, yeah, so it's a
yeah.
tough ask.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
good challenge coming up, but yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. So the awards, just to get onto last week's. So the Sweeney, we had a backman's battle last week, and the BZT last line defense tackle, his chase down tackle there. And can't remember who it was, but anyway, the BZT tackle that was the one that won around 70% of the vote. I did some rough math when I counted up quick. I'll do the exact math for the graphic later, but and the goal of the week last week was pretty popular, mostly universal. It was at about 80% of the vote. Mitch's return bomb from 50 won that one. So it's a couple of nice heartwarming moments from last week. It was
Yeah, we
nice.
love it.
Yeah, I love that we had. I did love that it turned out to be a battle of backman's efforts last week for the
Yeah, for
Sweeney.
sure.
Yeah, so that was awesome. So yeah, those are the winners for last week. This week we have our goal of the week will be first, and that's Jamie getting to nominate his first this week. So take it away, goal of the week.
Sure. I've gone for, you've actually mentioned it already in this episode, but the Bergman goal from 50 in the third quarter.
Play on, not required. Off hands, Farrell had it, lost it. Wine, Slick, Drew, Houston, HORNE-FRANCIS, off the back pedal. Bergman's gone for home and lost it home.
While it was a fantastic goal and a good passage of play, neither team had kicked a goal up to that point in the third quarter. So from half time, there was 9 minutes 20 to go in the quarter. No one had kicked a goal, and Bergman broke that drought. Unfortunately, Freo obviously got one back. Not that long after, I don't think. Maybe.
Yeah, I do. So I think we had we dominated the play fairly well with that reward, and it felt like it felt.
But it just goes to show you how tense and how much of a arm wrestle that third quarter was for both sides not to kick a goal in 10 minutes of play. And then just getting it on the outside at 50 and absolutely making sure of it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and I love the sequence of play, because we I think it was kind of a little bit of a pack scrum there at kind of on the 45 angle on the 50 there, and it kind of handballed out. I think Houston might have had a hand on it in there, and then a couple of others, and then got to kind of just a good sequence of working the ball out of the back of the pack to get to
just not giving up on it.
Yeah, and just a really good actual setup behind the ball that we set up there, and in that moment was everyone kind of figuring out what was available there, and Bergman having that and just the perfect connection on the ball too, because it was all he had to do was a right footer there. Was kind of if he aims at that that nearer goalpost, and with the angle and there's the natural arc on the ball that you're going to get as a right footer from there, it's going to go, and he just hit it perfectly, sweetly, direction,
perfectly,
technique and everything, and good celebration to go with it, the arms out, and just. I think there was a good photo on the Port socials, which I assume was probably the photographer. Does a great job with that, and it's just a really good celebration and a good moment as well.
Like you mentioned earlier, with JHF being the one to assist, after that video, you've already mentioned it, but that just
Dr.
topped it off in
Francis
hindsight that he did the business.
No, it was fantastic. That one was my top pick as well. So it's good to see we're on the same path there. But considering it's a game we only scored 9 goals, there was a lot of good ones. I thought I'll give a couple of honourable mentions because I'm probably going to go with the low-hanging fruit, but I think it's just I think it's actually a really good finish as well, and there's a lot of things to love about it. But a couple of honourable mentions. I think Todd's we talked about it earlier with Dunstall talking about when you've got a forward leading into space, just get it to them and let them go to work. Darcy Byrne-Jones, good a little assist to get it into Todd on the boundary there. And Todd's, I did do a little, this was just a random stats dive I did on just wanting to compare goals, career goal scoring averages. This is going to be a slight sidebar for a minute, but Todd's actually kicking at 67% for his career at the moment, which is he's only 0.1 percentage point less than Jay Schultz over his career, just for people wondering. Dixon's at 63.5%. I actually started at looking at it because I was, Dunstall's been appropriately lauded as entering as a legend into the the Australian Football Hall of Fame, and I was wondering what's Dunstall's career goal scoring? He runs at 66%. Treadway was 60%. Tom Hawkins is 64%. Lockett was 69%. Lance Franklin 59%. And then Dixon at 63%. As I said, Jay Schultz was 67.5%, and at the moment Todd Marshall's running 67.4%. So I kind of did it.
So what you're saying is Charlie Dixon is a better goal kicker than Lance Franklin.
And Warren Treadray.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, no, and there's no slight to any of them. I just thought it was interesting to look at career
No, definitely interesting. I love that shit.
percentage. Just as a note to people that like to crack the shits about how bad our goal kicking is. It's actually just kind of all of them just end up there somewhere in the range of the great goal kickers because it's just opportunities are less now. So that's why Dunstall's got 1,254 goals. Whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, back to it. Todd Marshall, that was just a side note to Todd Marshall's technique on the boundary there. Like, he's actually got a reasonable technique for most players. So he does get the yips here and there, but overall, over the past few years, and clearly for his career, he's running at a very good percentage compared to a lot of the other contemporaries that are known as pretty good kick goal kickers. I think Ben Brown had a pretty good, his average was similar as well. But that's not my pick. Another honorable mention, Butters, crumb and kick there in the square late in the game.
That was really in consideration for mine.
Yeah. And I almost went with that one, but I thought for the moment, going like even HORNE-FRANCIS himself has talked about it. Usually I would have gone drop punt there, but for some reason he just decided to go around the body.
Because he is a good drop punt.
Yeah, he's a reasonable set shot, just standard set shot, but he decided to go around the body.
Who's going to stamp themselves? We know this man's already stamped himself. Butters, high ball. Ryan's court has been enormous. Not on that occasion. A little toe poke. It could be Rosie, or it could be HORNE-FRANCIS. If it's not Butters and not Rosie, it's going to be HORNE-FRANCIS. He knows what he's doing. He was born to be in this situation. And the power in front.
Hit it fucking sweet as pie. Like, it just was, not in doubt. And I think for the moment it's a clutch finish as well. It's an undefinable kind of thing. The clutch moments,
sure.
Whatever sports you talk about, people talk about Steph Curry and whatever in basketball or whatever player, and obviously Michael Jordan being one of the premium exponents of clutchness in sports. But I think clutch moments do get an elevated feel for me, and particularly it wasn't just a straightforward dead in front shot. It was close to the goal, but he had to in the moment, and there was a lot riding on it. So I thought I deliberated a lot, and if I'd gone first, Bergman's would have been my pick, by the way, but I just had to go with the JHF. So, which is funny now looking at it. I've just realised it's the Jason Bergman week.
Bergman, very on brand.
Yeah, I guess that worked out perfectly. So that'll be an interesting one, because I think I have gone with probably the one that has the emotional resonance, but I think yours.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say
if it's not that one, it's the Charlie.
Yeah. I think the Bergman one is genuinely the best finish of the day, but it would be interesting to see what the people say. So
the people's vote.
Yeah.
So it's up to them.
Sweeney, this will be an interesting one as well. I think again, I'm probably taking one that's pretty easy to grab, but Lockie Jones chase down. Was that your top one?
Yeah, of course.
I did have.
It's just too good.
There is Smikowski, seems to have recovered, and they're out here. The Dockers. The ball will sit for Banfield. He'll want to get onto his left. Can he arch the back? Lockie Jones just ragged on him. First it was Soldo, and now Jones. A couple of cult heroes, and the crowd love it.
Commentary in the moment.
It's just too good.
The camera angle as well. They got like the close-in ground level camera on him as he's taking him down as well. I was like, geez, that's some good fucking camera work.
Yeah, props to the Fox Footy director for that one.
Yeah, and just the fact, and it's something we've talked. I think one of the reasons I really wanted to bring it up as well is we've talked about it in the aftermath of him getting a lot of stick a few weeks ago with his marking. His marking was a lot better in this game, by the way.
100%.
I don't actually have his stats in front of me for his marking, but he was generally really, really good this weekend. So
he took 5 marks. One of those contested. 2 of them were intercept marks. Yeah. So
I don't remember him. I don't have a great memory of him dropping an easy one or anything like that, as he, compared to his yips a few weeks ago. So that was good. Maybe a couple of Gramble fumbles again. You've mentioned he's still a bit of a
I did think he was a bit cleaner in some.
I thought the same
in tight situations too.
Overall, a really good game, I thought. So And a lot of people on Twitter did give him his flowers as well and said he had a pretty good one. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I saw that.
that tackle showed exactly what we were saying that people were missing at times the last couple of weeks is like his closing speed. And I thought he was a bit, maybe it's just me being a bit old school nuffy, but I thought he was a bit unlucky he had a similar tackle late in the game that actually ended up in the ensuing sequence of play, ended up in the Andrew Brayshaw snap that got them their little buffer.
Oh, was it really? Yeah,
it
I
went
didn't
forward from
piece
there.
those
and then
two
it kinda,
together.
Yeah, I thought, because when I watched it back, I was like, yes, it's a slinging act, but he's got the jersey, so he's not pinning the arms or anything like that. The guy falls down and doesn't hit his hand on the ground because he's got his arms free and he's able to brace himself a bit. So I thought it was. I thought it was.
Yeah, the umpires had a bit of a moment there because at first they called holding the man and then they changed it to dangerous tackle.
Okay, I missed that.
Look, again, I thought the umpiring performance was pretty good, to be honest, overall. But yeah, look, I think he did hold. Was it Switkowski?
Think it was
the second one. I think he did hold him a bit longer after the ball had been disposed of.
It was a second action, but I think he was kind of in there. Like he was just in the motion of tackling, and it's just like he probably was a bit over. But I thought when they said it was dangerous tackle, I was like, that's not to me. I looked at
he's let him go in midair.
And again, like the dangerous tackle to me has often been the pin of the arms and sling to the
Pinning
ground.
the arms,
is what they've often said is like an unprotected player, like you're not letting them protect themselves. And he was able to go to the ground with his arms free, and he kind of
both
rolled
arms.
with it. It was pretty bit of force in it, but he went to the ground, was able to roll, and because he had his arms free, he rolled and his head didn't hit the ground, and he bounced back up. So
I think it's funny that he had two opportunities to tackle that way.
Yeah,
it's like
he can grab a guy's jersey and hold on, and
and they're pretty tight these days.
Yeah. But yeah, that first one was, and that was, that was on Banfield. Banfield had his eye. He'd already had a look and was starting to turn the jets on, thinking he was going to open up onto his, open up and go to an open goal square because that was their forward 50 at that point was quite open, and he was just going to probably he was going to, if Jones hadn't executed that tackle and he'd gotten away, he was just going to be shooting at an open goal square with plenty of time to make his decision. And if he'd missed, it would have been a clanger almost. It was that was the opportunity. It was going to be an almost certain goal kind of opportunity, possibly.
Just on that point as well, just as a sidebar again, I just want to thank Bailey Banfield, who I rate. He's a reasonable player for Fremantle. I just want to thank him for having an absolute fucking mare kicking for goal in the last quarter.
Yeah.
He can kick two very gettable opportunities out in the full. One running into an open goal square, I'm pretty sure it was. And then one a free kick in the pocket. He can miss both of them completely. And who knows how the game would have played out after that if one of those two was a goal. But just want to thank him for just losing the plot in those two moments now that you brought him up. And the Jones tackle as well.
Incredible.
Banfield had a bit of a game, didn't he? Yeah, jeez. There's Butters controversy and the Jones tackle. Yeah. It's like the footy version of being put on a poster in the NBA. It's just
it is close when you're getting tackled like that, especially when it's like getting caught.
So unique as well.
Yeah, and it's
the way that he was tackled.
Yeah, and one of the most obvious holding the balls, obviously, because when you see the guy do his little like arching the back and going, and
he's trying to get away.
When they get caught anyway, it's beautiful. So great. And Lockie Jones, after a couple of weeks of maybe a little bit of heat, probably deserves to have a moment like that. So that's good for him.
Sure.
Yeah, all right.
I agree.
I've taken yours. I'm interested to see what you've got because I do have an honorable mention if you don't pick it, but I'll let you pick first. So
okay, a bit tough. Apart from that, because that one was a clear standout in my opinion. But there was a moment in the third quarter. You're gonna have to do a bit of digging. Because I can't exactly remember what happened as a result of it or what led. But basically, there was a bit of congestion forward of centre in the centre square. And Butters and Rosie did like 3 or 4 like look away handballs to each other.
Plays onto advantage. They dodge a bullet. Ace down the middle. Fife again tries to turn back the clock with a bit of high Fife action. Butters inside. Rosie with the look away. That worked. Bang towards goal, got under it a little, it's sailing.
And like
Mhm.
they kind of just like zigzagged. Rosie handballed it to Butters, and then just like sprinted past in congestion, and Butters look away handball. And I think Rosie got an inside 50. Again, I don't know what happened as a result, but it was just one of those moments that you're watching and you're like, oh yeah, that's good.
I think I have the vaguest of memories of it because I think there was a moment where
It's
I
a
was
bit
like,
out of the
"Jeez."
box.
Yeah, no, but it's kind of like I think my first week I had Butters like gathering and just fucking moving at full
Running,
speed.
yeah,
Like, yeah, those moments are really, yeah, it's just beautifully aesthetically, especially because those two just look so silky when they
pure
pull their
football.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's just such a
yeah. It's
highlight.
just like I was watching it, and I think Lucy, my partner, was sitting on the couch, and I had my earphones in, and it was just one of those moments I was like, oh, and yeah, she just goes like, what? And I'm like, oh, don't worry, that doesn't matter. It's
just,
nuffy
just
stuff.
we just love footy. I'm just gonna have to make a shirt that just says "We just love footy" on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, no, that I have a vague memory of just some moment of class between those two, so that might be it. So you said third quarter. I'll do so. I always do the digging and
Yeah,
find it.
I wrote that in my notes. It was
Mhm.
because we were going to
Yeah,
the southern end.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it was the third quarter.
Perfect. I'll find it. Don't you worry. So my honorable mention, since you didn't take it, I thought the DBJ tackle on, I think it was Luke Jackson in the last dying seconds that basically killed the game. So Luke Jackson's got it
Oh,
in the center square and is kicking forward, and it's when it's about 20
mm-hmm.
seconds to go after that kerfuffle on the sidelines where the advantage and all that stuff. And if Luke Jackson gets a free run at kicking that ball, I think it goes deeper into the forward 50. But DBJ just lays a tackle on him as he's kicking it, and it just takes the air out of the kick a bit, and it just
I
falls in
think
the
that might have been highlighted on one of the footy shows. Like he was
yeah,
gassed, DBJ. He was
yeah, oh yeah, and
like he was exhausted, and he just put in that extra effort to get to the
yeah,
get to
and
Jackson. I
especially
think it was that.
yeah, and yeah, it basically kick takes it instead of going probably inside 50, it lands in Farrell's arms, and with about 20 seconds to go, they just
That was it. Off
kick
to
it around a
Marshall,
little bit,
and
and so
yeah,
that effectively won the game, and the fact that it took away the last glimmer of hope that Freo had with getting a decent 450 entry. So great, especially as you said, DBJ was gassed. He just put one out in the full, probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes before in that sequence when he was
yeah.
trying to. And so yeah, it's again one of those things we love about what he's doing at the moment is like he still makes his little mistakes as he did in this game a little bit, but he didn't have the game going forward that he's had over the first 4 weeks of the season, but he still found a way to affect the game in that moment.
I
So
mean, he kept the ball alive in that last goal for us as well.
yes, yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, he's
when it's
popping
not
up
going
and
for you, those moments you gotta
yeah, it's the
contribute.
one percenters and the the things that don't get you exactly a disposal stat or anything like that can be just as important in those moments. So yeah, well, that was gonna be an interesting one for both the goal and the Sweeney because I think there's some interesting moments in there.
Yeah,
All
for
right,
sure.
the Player of the Year voting, which is as I said, I think I said to you off air. I don't think I said to this on air, but I'll be. We've had 2 weeks this year so far that we've
Yeah.
gone exactly the same. I think if we do it this week, I'm going out and buying a lotto ticket because I just don't think there's any. It was a really difficult
Yeah,
week.
this was tough.
Difficult
This
week
was
because I think
tough.
there's a lot more even spread rather than a clear cream, which is a good thing to
Mm.
have. But you get to go first on this one, so I'll let you take it
Yeah.
away.
Okay. So I want to give an honorable mention to my spotlight in Jace Burgoyne. I actually had him in the one vote. And then I changed it late just before we started recording. But I've gone for Rosie in the one spot. I don't think it was his best game. Again, in true Rosie fashion, he didn't give up in effort, but he didn't have the upper echelon of returns that he's capable of. He still had the 26 disposals, 10 contested, and he was involved in a lot of play. 488 meters gained, 8 inside 50s, and 26 pressure acts. But yeah, I think with the center being dominated a little bit more by Fremantle, just one of his lesser games, but still among our better players on the night, I thought. Two, I've actually got Kane Farrell. So he had the 26 disposals at touch under 77%. 13 pressure acts. He took 6 marks and he actually had 4 clearances. So for a halfback on a night where our clearance game wasn't at its best, obviously these were around the ground stoppages. For a halfbacker in Farrell to get 4 clearances himself, I thought that was a really good effort. But I thought the best note, I think there's been some people on social media point out that he blanketed Walters out of the game as well, who is quite a damaging small forward. And sure, it was a low scoring game, and there's a lot of forwards who didn't feature highly. Walters is still very experienced and very damaging forward, and to just take him out of the game, I thought was a very good effort. 3, I've got Aaliyah. So underrated game. Again, one for the defenders this game, particularly in the first half, although throughout the game, to be honest. He found himself in a lot of good positions. 15 disposals, going a touch under 87%. So again, with our defenders using it so well, just makes us more potent going forward on the rebound. They need to get it out of danger. I've brought it up in one of our other podcasts about the efficiency of our defenders. It's so important to get it out of danger efficiently. 8 marks, 4 of those were intercepts, 2 rebound 50s. But as well as that, he also, you're saying about DBJ's tackle on Luke Jackson, he also spoiled the inside 50 to Alex Pearce as well late in the game where they'd shifted. Great move by Longmuir, by the way, putting such a huge behemoth of Alex Pearce up forward just to change it. But Aaliyah was up to it and he got the spoil. So
really, really well executed spoil, which I think I saw.
Yeah, just on the fringes of being high, chopping the arms, but it was so well executed that none of them. It was perfectly done. So I thought in a game where the defense had to absorb a lot of pressure, he just seemed to be in a lot of the right spots for major parts of the game across the 4 quarters. So 4, I've actually got Butters in 4. I don't actually think he was the best on ground. Sure, he had impactful moments and he had the 24 disposals, 10 of those contested, 4 clearances, 6 score involvements. He had touch over 500 meters gained. He had the 9 tackles, which is, again, it's been one of the features in the last few weeks where he probably hasn't been in that Brownlow winning or contending, should I say, form. It's been what he's been doing off the ball that's been offsetting the fact that he hasn't been getting as much of the ball as he probably would like. So, look, although he was the PAFC's fan MVP, I actually thought that Houston was best on ground, and I'm pretty sure he was best on in the coaches' votes as well for Port. Freo obviously got more of the votes from the coaches, but Houston featured more. At first, I didn't actually think Houston had as good of a game as what I now do, obviously. But just looking at it again, just absorbing so much pressure throughout the whole game. He's having a quietly good start to the year. He's featured prominently in some of our votes, I think.
Yeah, he's got 8
He's been
votes.
there and thereabouts.
He's got 8 votes for the year.
So I guess that kind of he's been under the radar. He's kind of just doing what he needs to do, but 27 disposals at 85%, 740 meters gained. And I will say that early doors, I think, some of those were a bit wasted, which should be knocking him down to 85%. 6 marks, 3 of those intercepts. Like, he's just from his All-Australian year last year, he's keep on keeping on.
Yeah, I think he's
wanting a better term. That was yuck. Just a leader in the team doing exactly what he needs to do. And in football, it's easy to obviously go the midfielders, but he's doing a lot as a high halfback, and in a game where, yeah, like I've said a few times now, that we had to absorb a lot of pressure. Him and Aaliyah, our whole defensive group. To be honest, I've got 3 defenders in my votes because I thought that they had to carry a lot of burden against Fremantle, and I thought they did it quite well, capped off by him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I guess I'll say it right away. 5 and 4, exactly the same. So that's
right. Okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I had the same thought. I just didn't think I thought Butters was close to best on in a group that was a lot more, as we've said before, it was a lot more spread. It wasn't like a clear echelon. Houston's game right from the start, I thought his clinical, his eye for hitting up Mitch early for one of Mitch's goals was good, and he kind of was just
that was like a bullet, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, right into it was kind of like it was almost a look away as well. I think.
Yeah,
kind of looked like he was looking to
just
set it up and maybe for the top of the goal square, but then he kind of out of the corner of his eye did like the look away pass to Mitch coming into the pocket there.
I actually forgot about that, even though I've just spoken about him. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah,
that's pure Dan Houston.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and I think that might have been the one where I don't know if it was that one, but there was one where he was probably like 75 meters, 80 meters out, and I think there was some cheers in the crowd like go for it. Like I think the commentators
and again, commentators, they made comment on it.
Yeah. So yeah, no, Houston was definitely his best on for me, particularly his inside 50s and like the 700 meters gain in a game that was like as you said, maybe not all of them were real advantageous meter gain, but the fact he was getting that much going forward in a game that was really needing it, and we had some good numbers in that area, but it was just like between his efficiency and then Butters, I thought it was just as you said, he's still not quite in that kind of 35-40 disposal like game that's clearly getting 3 Brownlow votes or anything like that. It would be interesting to see where the Brownlow votes go in a game like this, because there'd be a few Freo players taking some as well. So, but for us, he did what he needed to do. Been a while since I felt like I saw him do one of his little as I mentioned before in the honorable mentions for the goals, that little burst through the goal square to snag a goal, because he's done that a little bit there, but that was just a great, like, he kind of followed in from the 50 as the ball was going through. You could just see him following in and just ready to. That's one of those great things about what his skill set brings, is that.
I'm not sure if we got a knife through Butters from Dwayne for that goal.
We did. That's another one.
Did he?
Yeah, no, he did. He said like a knife through Butters.
Yeah. Surely.
Yeah. No, he did. No, I remember.
It just takes me back to that game against Hawthorn a few years ago.
Yeah.
Scott Lysette just palming it down.
Yeah.
And he just splits the pack to kick a goal.
Yeah.
It always takes me back to that. Yeah. I'd forgotten about whether Dwayne.
It was a real greatest hits from Dwayne. I think I said to you in a message at one point during the night, like, I'm just sitting here on my own, like, I just out loud just went, Dwayne, you rascal. Like, just he was having a great.
And some people don't like it. I see you, the people that don't like it. Like, I know it's not for everyone, but oh man. I was in the mood for it, and I still am in the mood. I almost want to watch the game again just for the commentary.
I might just put the sleep mask on and just listen to it as I go to bed. All right, so I'll start back from my 1 through 3. My 1 I gave to Kane. I've changed these so many times, and I'm probably I'm already regretting where they're placed a little bit. But it's just like where they sat at the end, and I got sick of trying to change it. But my 1 vote went to Kane Farrell. I feel a few honourable mentions as well, because I wanted to get Zerk Thatcher. I wanted to get Aaliyah in there. I didn't get Aaliyah in there, which is a good point of difference in our votes this week, actually, I think, which is fun. But there was a couple. I just couldn't pick which defender to go with, and ended up with none, which I probably shouldn't have. But it's part of when you have an even spread with only five spots. But Kane Farrell went into my 1 vote. I thought he was probably one of my ones that possibly a few weeks ago almost ended up on my watch list for an improvement, but like he's come on pretty well lately.
Yeah.
As have a lot of the guys. Like, again, Bergman was almost in there as well. Like, there was a lot of guys I wanted to fit in here. But yeah, Farrell gets the one. I thought 26 disposals, and as you said, just he was really, really involved in this game, and that's what we want to see. That's something we've often called for out of Farrell, is a little bit more rounded, because he's like all the little, that beautiful foot of his and everything that we love about him. But we've wanted to round out the game and get involved more in the.
I think the highlights of his game kind of lift the perception.
Yeah.
But I agree, where in the last few weeks he's been on the fringes of whether to put on the spotlight or not. I agree with what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, to reward him for that, I wanted to get him in there. I did get Jace Bergen. I probably just a little bit of nepotism as someone.
Can't argue with you. I was super impressed.
Peter Burgoyne was absolutely one of my favorite players growing up, and watching Jace run around like that in that number and play the way he did, I was just noticing him the whole day. And it's not like he was doing anything exceptionally noticeable. Certainly a tackle, and it's just he was always involved. He was always there, and running at 90%.
Bit of footy IQ, perhaps.
Yes, yeah, that's what it was. It was just like he seems to, in a similar vein to Willem Drury, just like there's a sense of calmness around the way he plays. He seems to. He looks like he looks like he believes he belongs now, which is a really important thing, I think, at that age. And he still doesn't have a defined role in this side yet, but yet he played that well, which I think is promising when you can come in and just play a role and actually not just play a role, but exceed expectations in that role as well, and actually have a handy role in a win. I thought was really, and 9 contested possessions in those 21 disposals, I think it was. So a pretty handy role in a game that was crying out for every available player to play a role and play a role with high efficiency was really good as well. And then Rosie got into the 3 spot, which is again because you popped him in the 1, and I deliberated. Rosie was probably the one that really I was flipping him around all sorts. He never got higher than 3. He was down in 1 at one point. I had Farrell up in 3, and then I switched it around. I think I confused myself there, because I don't think he was worthy of the 3, but then it's just like it was such an even spread again that it was hard to kind of. And I think he was played well enough to get into the votes, and certainly had some moments of class in the game. That
absolutely.
Yeah. So it was a really
I can't really argue with you.
It was just one of those.
Could have easily put him in a higher up in mine as well, but for fear of nepotism, probably dropped him down.
Which is good. And that's why I liked it. Sometimes you do have the clear best, and I think Houston was, for me, clear best on. But then it is interesting that the fans went a different way, which is, I think it just shows this the even spread of it. So it'll be interesting when I actually put it into the leaderboard graphic, how it all shakes out at the end of it, because that's Rosie was 7 votes ahead going into this week, but he's only getting 4 total out of us, and Butters is getting 8. So Rosie will still have a lead, but it'll tighten up there a little bit. So yeah. And then HORNE-FRANCIS had a decent game. It's just we kind of probably have. I think he only had maybe 18 disposals. He did everything.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, he played a good game, just not quite vote getting.
I don't know how much it was affecting him, but he did contract the flu during the week with someone else as well. There was 2 players.
Two players that missed
him,
training.
him included.
Yeah, no, I forgot about that. But he had his Jordan flu game moment then at the end of the game.
Yeah,
with the
but
goal,
even him, he was still there. Was still passages. Flu game. Yeah, well, maybe not to that caliber. But yeah. Hopefully, there's another flu game to come in that regard. But
even just talking about back to that, just because it just came to my mind again, and the commentators I think brought it up in telecast. I think it was Dunstall did. How good HORNE-FRANCIS' little assist kick to Bergman was on that goal that you've nominated for goal of the week.
Because if he hand passed, it would have been smothered.
Yeah. He just kind of did a little chip kick around the side of the player that's coming in to defend it. It's just So his footy brain was well switched on for a game. It was, he didn't have as much opportunity to affect it the way he has been, but it's incredible. And
it was Rosie, Farrell,
was
Butters, and HORNE-FRANCIS who all had 4 clearances.
Yeah,
which are at the top. So he still featured.
Yeah,
in some great passages of play in true JHF fashion. But it was.
Even Zerk Thatcher, I wanted to get in there
side
again.
the 5.
Yeah. So Soldo could have gotten in there because I think he had a
I
decent
agree.
game again.
Yeah.
Soldiered on after getting an elbow in the face at one point as well. So he's a tough nut. So yeah, it was a real interesting one for the votes, but it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But yeah, I was pretty sure we weren't going to be the same there. It was interesting that we got the
Yeah.
same top ones, but that was probably where the cream separated a little bit at the top. There was the Houston and Butters. So
Yeah. Two leaders
alrighty.
doing their job.
Yeah, that's about it for that one. We this weekend we head to the MCG to play the reigning premiers, which is kind of at the start of the year when we were talking about the block for the start of the year. We talked about those first 5 games being an opportunity to build up a little bit of a springboard going into this game. Now we're here, 4-1, which is probably about where we hope to be. I mean, 5-0 would have been perfect, and we're very close to that, to be fair. So
Very,
not
very
too bad.
close.
But we head to the MCG for a real litmus test, which is even made even more intriguing by the fact that Collingwood have started the season somewhat apathetically, I guess would be the way to put it. Not quite the Collingwood we've seen over the last couple of years. So 1:15 our local time, Melbourne Standard Time, but 1:45 in Melbourne, I think it is the game. Looking like a little bit of rain around in Melbourne this week, but it should be clearing up on Saturday. Maybe a bit cloudy, but it's meant to not rain. I think 10% chance of precipitation is what I saw when I looked up the bomb earlier. 18 degrees high, which is 65 Fahrenheit for anyone listening from over here. So probably probably just a decent autumn day in Melbourne from the looks of it. Like not too hot, not too cold.
Yeah.
Which is probably not too bad at the G. Collingwood dealing with not too many issues, but obviously they've had a big one today with Murphy retiring after 57 games at 24 years old, medically retiring due to concussion issues out of the grand final. So his last game played in his career was grand final win, which is, again, it's sad that he's having to retire so early in his career at such a young age, but fucking if you got to go out, you might as well go out that way, I guess. And
could be worse ways to go out.
Yeah, so he's obviously not available and hasn't been available this year, and will definitely not be available this week. He was a big part of that grand final win and their defensive structure last year. So so he's probably been maybe one of those important parts missing in the early part of the year, which they've been struggling a little bit. And then Pendlebury's a test this week with his rib injury copped out of going before they in the Hawthorn game going into this bye week they've been on. So for us, Zach Thatcher was the only real concern coming out of the game on the weekend against Freo. But it seems Porter suggesting that he's avoided any serious damage and is expected to play, which to put that out there early in the week is a good sign, because sometimes at this point of the week, if they're worried, they'd probably put it at a test, but they seem to just think he'll be available. So that's good. Boak is a test though, so it'll be interesting to see. Could be unchanged, but could be some things that you've certainly got one of your things to talk about when we can't come to it, which you might as well go into it now, actually. See if we're going to get into talking about it here before we wrap up. Your thing for the week, it's a perfect segue.
Yeah. My thing for the week is whether we rest Charlie Dixon now and bring in Jordan Sweet for the first time this season, just to see how it looks. Obviously, with Cox and Cameron being in Collingwood's arsenal, if you want to use that term, obviously a couple of big bodies roaming around the ground, and I've been super impressed with Soldo's output this season. I think maybe the first half against Richmond, I mentioned, was a bit meek. I thought is obviously maybe, not in it fully in his head coming up against his old side. But apart from that, I think he's been flawless, and I'm just wary of burnout playing the one ruck, and again up against two ruckmen in Essendon. He quitted himself perfectly, but how many times can we rely upon that? And again, like Dixon was in, what was it, 2 centre bounces, and he looked absolutely out of his depth when, like, in the past, he's been quite competitive and whatnot, but we're at the point in time where it's just not worth it, and I don't want to see it.
Mm.
More than happy for Dixon to take forward half stoppages, but at the end of the game on Saturday, yeah, he looked a bit banged up,
Mm.
and if they're going to do what they said they're planning on doing, and that's looking after him, he's going to have a rest some time. And yeah, I just feel that this could potentially be the week, although it's a road trip to Melbourne at the MCG against the reigning premiers. Sweet is obviously champing at the bit to have a crack. I mean, I'm just trying to get up his stats now from the weekend, but I think he kicked a couple of goals, dominated the hit outs, had a healthy amount of possessions. Like, it just seemed that he had an all-round good game.
Mm.
Just give me a moment. I'll just bring up his stats quickly here.
Yeah, but while you're doing that, I do. It's kind of like sometimes when the opportunity, the door, opens up, even just a jar for an opportunity to try something. It is, you do look at the way Dixon finished up the game, although he finished up with a great goal to get us back into and eventually help us win it. But he was limping around a fair bit there for a bit of the game and did look decently banged up, and maybe we do just need to manage him at some points in this season and give him a rest when he has had a game where he's had to significantly battle and get banged up the way he did, and certainly the opportunities there with the fact that Finlayson's obviously suspended. So that being the outlet for the ruck, the pinch hitting in the ruck has always been Finlayson, but now he's suspended, so he's not available. Dixon's a little bit banged up, and as you've said, like, Sweet, couple of goals on the weekend, and then Soldo's made it. Like, whenever he goes forward and rests forward, he seems to pop up. He's decent mark and decent kick for goal as well. So it's not like we're losing anything in that sense. Certainly Dixon's, we both love him and both give him a lot, like, the plaudits he's due. He's an irreplaceable kind of presence when he's at his best. But when he's not at his best is when we start, then when those frustrations really set in. So yeah, it could be the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. So Sweet, far and above, led the hitouts. He had 37 hitouts. The next best was actually Visentini, who got 14, and then ruckman got 9 and 4. Like, it's just an absolute domination in the ruck. But yeah, 19 disposals, 2 goals, 1, 3 marks, 8 tackles as well for a ruckman, 7 clearances. Like, just absolutely had a fantastic game, Jordan Sweet. So I thought it would have been okay for them to trial it against Essendon, and in the end, Soldo played a fantastic game. But yeah, I just if it's, and as well as that, if it's not, like, we're gonna have to give him a crack. I think we spoke about this last week or the week before.
We have spoken about it at some point about when
it's just like, if it's not now or not soon, then when is it gonna be?
Yeah.
And I don't want them to do it, to wait too long, to A, give Dixon a spell, and B, try Sweet and Soldo together. We want to know how that looks. And yeah, I just think it's a good opportunity to do it this week. Give Dixon a rest. Like Marshall, Georgiadis, the rest of our forward line, I think they can cover. And like you said, Soldo's capable of a goal. Sweet is clearly capable of a goal, although it was against West Adelaide in the Riverland. It's not Collingwood at the MCG. He's 200 centimetre forward, like, up 200 centimetre ruck plus. He's still going to provide a challenge for a Collingwood backline, which would have Frampton and Moore as their tallest defenders, I believe.
Yeah. And then when you got Mason Cox roaming around the ground as well at his height, to have someone to kind of match up on him a little bit, add that extra, real tall height, might be good. And I think Jordan Sweet, I'm not going to get into it because a lot of people like to bash Mason Cox just because he's a Yank, and he does carry himself a little bit of cockiness, but that's Texas boys do that. So, but
he's a role player.
Yeah, but as far as actual footy, Sweet, I haven't seen too much of, but I see, listening to those stats you've just read out, it sounds like he had a pretty good impact, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how he matches up as a pure matchup skills wise with a guy like him as well. But I not something I considered until we were chatting about our things just to make sure we weren't crossing over on them pre pod. And when you brought it up, I was like, yeah, no, that's a great one to bring up, because it is something that, while he wasn't the most high profile addition to the side, it was still a significant one in the fact that we were restocking our ruck stocks that were clearly a point of contention last year, and really a point of where we fell down a little bit last year. So we do want to see how that works there. And fuck it, like when Dixon is banged up after last week, I think. I think he's probably fine. Like, he's not injured, but he is probably sore.
Yeah, we don't want to get to the finals, assuming we'll get there, and he'll be exactly how it was at the end of last year.
Yeah,
we don't want that.
Not even.
We need to learn from that experience.
And especially when you've got the horses in the stable, so to speak.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
Just sorry, if I can just interject on that topic. We were talking about Jed McEntee before, and not sure how Frankie Evans went. 2 goals, 22 disposals, and 7 tackles. So I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him an opportunity.
Yeah. Especially he's got he has had some really, really handy cameos when he's come on the sub. It's probably, he hasn't had a great starting game, I don't think, as far as a full game. But
no, I thought he let himself down the last time he had that opportunity.
Yeah, but it's still he's putting in the stats and the performances at the Sandford level to get himself that opportunity again. And depth is certainly not something, at the moment, knock on wood, we're actually going okay with. So it's and those guys are knocking at the door there, and with a few guys that have not let them, it's hard to say let themselves down. It's just that's selection squeezes are a good thing, and I definitely agree on a sweet one. Now that you brought it up, it would be the reigning premier is probably, there's not much better opportunity to see how it works. It's not like it's taken a huge risk for me either, to be honest. I think it's just
and I don't think it's the same Collingwood that we played at the MCG last year, or in our game at Adelaide Oval last year. They're favourites in the betting agencies at the moment.
Collingwood, or we are.
Yeah, Collingwood. Yeah, just slightly.
Probably might be just a pick 'em with home field, basically, I would think. And then
I mean, I lost a few tips earlier in the season, just expecting them to just bounce back, and I suppose there's a bit of that too. But if they're ever maybe ripe for the picking, it's now. Assuming that we go in with the right attitude. That's probably moving away from my point a little bit.
Yeah, well, I guess we can segue into and before I get to my thing, we can actually just do a collective one. It's a bit of an amalgamation, because there was a few things we wanted to touch on, but you talked about Collingwood coming off a bye as well, and a little bit of a chance for them to reset after an indifferent start to the season. I guess it's probably putting it politely. And then along with that it's the MCG for us, and then it's the fact we haven't actually beaten Collingwood since Travis Spoke's 300th game, which was a home game, quotations. But it was if everyone remembers, it feels like so long ago now, but when SA had its last lockdown or COVID scare, when Travis Spoke's home 300th game, which, geez, I was looking forward to that, got moved to the MCG, or I think it was the MCG, or was it Marvel? Did it end up at Marvel?
I actually think it might have been Marvel.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about it. So, we haven't beaten them since then anyway. So, obviously Travis Spoke's 300th game is a fair while away now, ago now. That was back in 22. 22 or 21? That was back in 21. Yeah, so
21.
Yeah, so we only played him once in 2022 and lost that one by a goal, I think. And then, last year we got handily beaten at the G, and then a close one at home. So it's a couple of years since we've beaten them. Obviously, the MCG is a ground we've got an indifferent history at lately. And then, as you said, where are the Pies at coming off the bye as well? So there's a lot to look at there. And but as you kind of touched on as you were segueing into it, it does feel like a window of opportunity to kind of catch them when they're still trying to figure it out. And there's a few, still side bottom and hasn't started they got incredible years out of Sidebottom and Pendlebury that helped launch into that premiership last year, like vintage, the best of Steel Sidebottom and the best of Scott Pendlebury. At their age last year were integral parts of that premiership, and they just haven't started the year well. Pendlebury's obviously a test for this week with the rib knock he got in gather round, and so yeah, it's not the same Collingwood side. Obviously, Murphy out retired as well, which was a big part of their side last year, and yeah, just things aren't all clicking completely as well. So it's a lot of things going into this thing that we're talking about, but
Yeah,
I see it as a window of opportunity, but it's also I'm really interested to see how we play the MCG, and it's a big moment for us to go up against the reigning premiers at the MCG as well, and the reigning premiers being Collingwood, which is a rival in a sense for us as well.
sure. Yeah, and like their 2 wins so far, they got Brisbane at what seemingly was a good time,
Mm.
up at the Gabba, which was good.
Yeah,
And they did play a great game. They brought pressure and intensity. And then they found themselves, 38 points up against Hawthorn. And
mm-hmm.
while I didn't watch that game, apparently they looked cooked in the end, and Hawthorn came home with a wet
They
sail.
did. I watched the end. I watched the last half of that game. I got back from. I can't remember. Anyway, yeah. Sorry, I'm interrupting, but yeah, no, they did. Hawthorn should have won that. They got themselves within a goal with 5 minutes to go, and basically Collingwood just
Yeah, they had a shot on goal too, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they did.
Missed
Yeah, but
it.
it was just really just Collingwood desperation that held them from
Excuse me.
getting too much of a decent shot on goal, too many decent shots on goal to try and win it at the end. But yeah, Collingwood certainly didn't
Yeah,
look like they were ever going to go forward and score themselves to try to put the ice the game away themselves as well. So it was
they
interesting.
were sitting on it a bit.
Yeah, they just didn't have any run going forward, and I think
Yeah,
they their meters gained for the year is I think third or second worst in the league. Like they just aren't moving the ball well. Third worst for inside 50s so far in the comp. We're first for inside 50s and third in meters gained, whereas Collingwood are the complete opposite side of the spectrum. So they're just not. Yeah, they just weren't moving the ball well. In that, and that's what that was really highlighted at the end of that Hawthorn game, where they were a mixture of being gassed and yeah, whether that's just a symptom of coming off the premiership and a shorter preseason and all that stuff that is often brought up in modern footy a little bit is just how these teams can recover. But as we've seen in recent years, teams have had been able to build themselves into dynasties in the last. There's been 2 of them in the last 15 years, so it is possible.
yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah,
they would have been doing a lot of homework over
yeah,
their bye. They would have been doing a lot of review,
absolutely,
reflection.
yeah,
And the MCG, I don't think it suits our press, obviously, as well as it does at Adelaide Oval. So I think that's why we tend to get a little exposed a little bit if we're not on.
Yeah, especially with the guys that
But
can move it down the wings and stuff. But yeah, yeah. But
so
I mean,
yeah, it's a really interesting situation for both sides to be in, and what starts quite an interesting and potentially tough months of football for us as well.
yeah,
Yeah, we're let me start that again. We're currently where we thought we probably would be in terms of the win-loss ledger, and we said that we could easily be 4-2 after this game in our preset, but I don't think anyone expected Collingwood to start the season how they have. So
yeah,
all of a sudden, in my mind, it's almost expectant that we win this game based on form. We're,
yeah. We
in the
should be.
premiership window based on that graphic, and they've got a lot left to be desired, Collingwood, with the way they've played. You just don't. We just hope this isn't their big rebound game, although the Brisbane game probably was a bit of a rebound game for them, their first win on the board. But again, they have an opportunity to make a statement. We have an opportunity to make a statement. It's, a recipe for a very good game of football. But I'm confident that our leaders will step up, and I'd like to see Willem Drew do a job if necessary. There's been some opportunities throughout the season. We know how good he is at it, and if that's what it takes to knock them off the boil again, we've got that up our sleeve.
Yeah, are you talking about a job on Dacos or
just whoever's catching fire? It could be Jagoe.
Yeah.
in the middle, because I think he was one of the only shining lights out of that Hawthorn game, from what I understand. He was carrying a pretty big load.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, no, I'm really interested to see it because it's even I think forget that they're missing Taylor Adams out of that side from last year as well. I know he missed.
yeah, of course he's
but he was
Sydney now.
Yeah, he was a big part of their advance to the grand final, even though he missed it, didn't
Contested
he?
ball winner.
He missed the grand final, didn't he? He got injured in the
He did,
prelims.
yes,
Yeah.
unfortunately, yeah.
But he was a big part of their wins throughout the season and had a pretty good year. So there have been some significant changes to that side, and it's going to be a different side, but they're still the reigning premiers and still the heart and soul of the side is there, and the young stars. And I mean, my thing, it's not like, I'm not sure how Dacos is going. He's been reasonable to start the year, but we've been those couple of games last year. I think we cheated a little bit too much to try. We tried a few things on him and they didn't work, and then it ended up working against us because we kind of tried to change on the go. And
Yeah, they put Lockie Jones
he
on
spent
him
like a quarter on him and actually went okay.
Yeah, as a defensive forward.
Yeah. And it seemed to work okay, but then because it took away from other parts of the game, they kind of went away from it. And then Dacos caught fire, and
and it unraveled fairly. Yeah.
But my thing with that is that I think we're just at a little bit more advanced stage in our play. That I'm going to be really intrigued to see how we manage the kind of Nick Dacos effect and what he can do. Do we just go fire with fire and just be like back ourselves in, which I'd probably prefer, but we do still need to have an eye to wanting to stop him if he does catch fire as well. So it's going to be a real intriguing, again, as we started off talking about the chess match against Freo, it's going to be a chess match of a different type. Trying to manage one of the more mercurial and real eye-catching talents in the league, and one of the someone that's certainly, I know a lot of people make fun of the fact that Fox Sports went nuts with their 50 games, but he has had a pretty.
I think that was the AFL website.
Or the AFL website,
was
it?
Cal Toomey. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. But all snarkiness aside, he has had a pretty damn good start to his career. So he's one of those ones you got to watch, and he can be insanely damn and I did think about it last year though. There was a lot. Pendlebury was a big part of that win over at the G last year against us. He had a really vintage Pendlebury game. So if he's either not playing or if he's at least banged up, it's a different side. So Dacos might actually just get it.
It's a chink in the armor.
And Dacos might
if he does,
might get a bit more attention because we don't need to pay as much attention to other areas. But yeah, as you said, he's
we need to bring the pressure. I think even last year in the home and away season, when teams lifted the pressure, both Dacos and Collingwood as a whole, that's when they looked most vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
It's an obvious thing to say because, of course, but it'll be very Port Adelaide to start on the back foot, try and capture fire later. But if we put him under immense pressure, and overall, we need to just be able to hold it for as long as possible.
Yeah, and take our opportunities as well, which we've been reasonable at this year without being exceptional at it. So we've certainly
silence the crowd.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
be really interested to see what a crowd is like at that time of day, and with the Pies traveling. Obviously, they'll probably pull a decent crowd, but nice early one for me this week though. It's at 8:45.
It's
8:45
nice one. Saturday Arvo.
So Friday night.
What time does it end up out your way?
8:45 on Friday night. It's perfect.
That's all right.
A hell of a lot better than 2:30 in the morning the last couple of weeks. I think. So, yeah. Oh, do you have any other thoughts on that, or we wrap this baby up?
No. I think I've said all I wanted to say on that point.
Awesome. It's going to be a fun one. It's always, there's always a lot of other side storylines to the Collingwood game, which thankfully have subsided the last few years with the fact that the league's gotten a bit more of a handle on the prison bar situation, it seems. But still, I assume the port crowd over there will have there's always the heritage banner in the port cheer squad over there that gets a little bit of a wave. So I'll be
Yeah,
excited
love
to
it.
see that. But yeah, it's always a fun one to go up against the Pies over there. Our first game in the AFL was over there against them, and not that it went well, but it's still a little bit of history there, so it's always fun. But yeah, that's about it.
Mm.
Thank you for listening as always. Appreciate everyone's support and the listening and the follows. Tell your friends and family about it. I should say that more often, but I know there's plenty of people out there that probably don't follow that might get something out of it. So tell them all about it and tell them to like and subscribe. Or if your parents have Instagram and they don't really use it much, just go on their phone and make them follow our account, and then they'll suddenly start seeing
Yeah, just do it for them.
yeah, and then they'll start seeing it and liking it, and then that adds to the engagement. So that's good. So yeah, follow on the socials and all that stuff, and yeah, that's about it. I'm knackered.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, thanks everyone. Thanks, Dave. And yeah, let's hopefully see Port get over the line once again this weekend.
Yep. Calm the fucking pair.